Welcome, everybody. This is Nate Night Talks. Tesla, movies, and UFO current events, and more. I probably shouldn't have put an and there. I just now caught that. Oh, well, too late. Going to be talking about all of those subjects tonight. So it's going to be a fun conversation, all over the place, which in a good way, obviously, within those parameters. We don't want to go too off the rails with things. But I do want to start with the opening monologue, as is par for the course. And what I want to talk about, and then we'll get to movies, current events, and more. What I want to talk about pertains to Tesla. And pertains to the UFO phenomena at large. I've been reading a book, which is right here, for those of you who will see it on the video later. This is Occult Ether Physics, Tesla's Ideal Flying Machine, and the Conspiracy to Conceal It. I'm only roughly 20 pages or so into this book. And this was recommended to me actually by Shiva Below, which serves this whole greater story. As we talk about in this room all the time, our reality is exactly what we make of it. For better or worse, we are a reflection of all of those thoughts. And those thoughts are usually based on conditioning in the first 10 years of our life, authoritative figures later in life, whether parents, teachers, government, whatever the case may be, or just very influential peers, people that have molded our paradigm and what we believe to be true and real about reality. That's not actual reality, that's just our reality, and our subconscious mind reinforces it every day by isolating the things that corroborate or reinforce the narrative that we've convinced ourselves to be true about all things. And so within that idea that we're constantly creating our own reality, which I do believe, which also gives us the true sovereignty and power over our own destiny and our consciousness and everything that we think and do. Within that comes the idea of, I don't want to woo it with some new agey terminology, but it is essentially the law of attraction. Everything is energy, right? Everything, we boil it down to the very core of even an atom. All things are energy, resonance, frequency. And that is the nature of all things in the universe. And because there is a resonance and frequency to everything, we attract things that are on the same frequency that we are on. So it behooves us to stay in a more positive, loving frame of mind to attract things that are on that same frequency versus repelling them. And so I'm making a point here, I swear. I've been toying around the idea in this ever ongoing, never-ending exploration of the UFO phenomena, the extraterrestrial presence of consciousness, everything therein, and all of my research, all of my psychedelic journeys, all of my firsthand experience, everything is there to serve that end, to find the truth and best understand what it is to be human and in this very experience that we are in. And along that journey, as I always say, we must be willing to be wrong. We must be willing to admit the fact that, especially given the things that we're talking about, we may very well be wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only problem is when we become dogmatic about a particular belief, ideology, whatever it may be, and we double down on it to a point of willful ignorance of contrary evidence that may be posed to us. And so I'm always trying to make sure that I keep that open mind, to make sure that I am taking in all information all the time, even if it may not back what I previously thought, said, or maybe believed to be true, or maybe if it's a far less compelling story to what's actually going on than visitation by extraterrestrial beings. Now, don't get me wrong. I do 100% believe that we have been visited by intelligent life from multiple planets and most likely multiple galaxies, if not just our own. And I believe that's been taking place since the dawn of time. And I believe all religions around the world are proof of that, as well as petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, and the things that have been passed down to us in story and myth and religious texts. I think that is a very good foundation of evidence to say that this visitation has been taking place since the origin of our species, and most likely is the cause of our species, in particular the human race, and this missing link, if you will, in the evolutionary chain on this planet. But whether or not that is the same as the explanation for what is currently happening right now with the UFO phenomena, or even the past 100 years, is something that I do kick around a lot in my head. I don't voice it too often in these rooms, but I have, and more in passing, with just the idea that we really don't know. And the deeper I've dove into this, the more I've learned, the less I ultimately know. And that is the theme with anything that you might be researching as it pertains to any type of alternative thinking, or with subjects that are highly stigmatized and demonized and relegated to the fringe, and riddled with counterintelligence and disinformation and lies. And so it's very hard to know what the actual truth is, because there are many forces at play that are trying to keep you from ever learning it. So one of the possibilities for this influx and UFO visitation going back to essentially the 30s, and I think probably the most popular explanation in ufology, is the idea of us splitting the atom, creating the nukes. And when we did that, there seemed to be a major increase in UFO traffic on our planet. And coincidentally, after that were things like the Roswell crash and a number of other incidents that seem to coincide greatly with this influx in UFO activity, as well as their curiosity about all of our nuclear installations, whether power plants, submarines, missiles, whatever it may be, that a lot of these events were taking place near these clandestine government operations that were dealing with nuclear capability. So that is a very plausible. It's usually the one I tend to subscribe to, and a lot of I think pretty much every ufologist, any UFO researcher, thinks the same thing. And that can be easily seen by, I guess, reading any of their books, watching any of their documentaries, or just reading most blogs in the UFO space. But there is the other option. And these two aren't mutually exclusive, mind you. And so I'm definitely not saying this, that this is real, and that the idea of ET visitation as the cause of these UFOs that we've been seeing for the past 100 years is not also happening. I believe it definitely is. But I believe it may be happening less frequently than we think. And the majority of the sightings that we have seen and are seeing are a direct result of our technology. And I've always believed this. I've always believed and typically said that I believe the majority of the UFOs we see today are most likely ours. I know that's a stance Stephen Greer takes, and a number of others, that there in fact are reverse engineered craft that are flying around. But what if it's predominantly ours? And that goes for all of them. And there's been a lot of information, a lot of research that if you really dive deep into this space, you're inevitably going to come across. I can't remember what that hacker was in the 90s who hacked into NASA and talked about seeing the giant motherships that they had, like cigar-shaped massive ships that they were showing that were a part of our fleet, and smaller tic-tac-looking shapes as well. A number of different shapes and sizes that we're all aware of. I think most people are aware of the three main ones, which are the cigar shape, disc shape, and triangular or chevron shaped UFOs. But there's a lot of information out there about how you distinguish between the two of them, and obviously looking for rivet features and seams and things like that would indicate that it's our technology versus theirs, which seems to be a cast mold of a material that we can't. Well, we could replicate on Earth, but it would take billions, if not trillions, of dollars to do, because the materials that make them up are so scarce and rare. And this also goes with the backstory of that would be the reverse engineered, that we were reverse engineering these from things like Roswell and a number of other crashes that have taken place, but we don't need to go down that rabbit hole of information. Those of you who research this are aware of a number of them, and those of you who don't can definitely look it up. But what if it was never the Roswell crash, or the Roswell crash in particular, which is a theory I heard a long time ago, but wasn't really sure what to make of it, was that those were actually the Nazi bell, the Nazi discs that went down in Roswell, New Mexico. What if all that technology this whole time was, in fact, ours? And yes, these crashes did take place, and these recoveries did take place. And once again, I'm not saying that they're not, the extraterrestrial presence is not a very real thing and a part of it. But what if it's a very, very tiny, tiny part of it? And in fact, we have had this technology, which according to this book, Occult Ether Physics, that dives into Tesla's past, his work, the things that he was working on as it pertained to these electrogravitic anti-gravity type of propulsion systems in vehicles. And the story about Tesla, which some of you may know a little bit about, is a very sad one and really kind of highlights the corrupt corporate power structure that exists in the world. This, if you want to call them the Illuminati or the secret societies, if you will, the very, very small elite that control pretty much all the world's resources, whether that's through banking, through insurance, agriculture, power, whether it's nuclear, gas, et cetera, fossil fuels. They've controlled all this and had monopoly on it for hundreds of years, as well as funding both sides of every war since then. And Tesla was very unfortunate in the people that he was reaching out to for funding. One of them being the Morgans from J.P. Morgan, and who was also a principal owner in G&E and the other power monopolies that were ultimately fueling the country and other parts of the world. And so his technology that he was creating, which was absolutely revolutionary. I think he had over 1,000 patents and over 1,000 others that he never actually got filed for a patent with. As reading this book, you realize that not only was he completely suppressed and silenced by the people who ultimately controlled the power, more in particular, energy, because of everything that he was inventing, essentially the 0-point energy, the ability to, power the world and create crafts that, could take us basically anywhere we wanted, that would cost less than an automobile and never need to be, recharged or maintained barely at all. That these things threatened an entire industrial revolution and, frankly, the energy revolution that had been taking place. And so he was seen as a threat, and his work, unfortunately, was stalled for, I guess, a more generous and kind way of saying it. But what was revealed in this book, which was something I wasn't aware of, I'm a big fan of Tesla, doing a deep dive into his biographies or the information that has not been suppressed, the hundreds of boxes of his files that were not stolen out from under his still cooling corpse when he was found and locked away and classified and never seen again. I didn't do too much more research other than just knowing that this was most likely a big part, that we and this is something Greer, talks about all the time, that we possess this technology for essentially infinite clean energy, for over 100 years. And same thing with kind of electrogravitics and the idea of these type of propulsion systems that we see present on the UFOs. But it talked about something that I thought was interesting, which was when he was not able, because obviously those people like the Morgans and the Rockefellers, et cetera, owned the government, as do, the Rothschilds and others around the world, that he was not able to essentially get the contracts that he wanted to be able to put these type of things, especially certain flying machines, into production. And so, being obviously broke and stressed out, he ended up selling one of these patents in particular that had to do with that, and these flying machines, to none other than Wernher von Braun. And which is a very interesting tie-in for those of you who've done a lot of research into this, especially into Greer's work and everything that he talks about as far as the proof for this false flag narrative that he believes is strongly believes is upon us with the UFO disclosure. But that he basically sold it to the Germans, and they were creating or working with this technology during World War II. And that's where we hear things, obviously, that the Germans had flying saucers. They were working on, also from Die Glück, essentially time travel and a number of other things they were into. They were very much into the occult, and all of this is validated and can easily be researched, and it's a really wild and kind of crazy story. But after that was Project Paperclip, for those of you who also are familiar with this stuff. It's a very interesting tie-in of how all of this comes together, is that he sold it to the Germans, Werner von Braun. They were working on this stuff, making these craft in Germany. And then after the war was over, we obviously took, a minimum of a couple thousand of Hitler's top scientists, engineers, propagandists, propulsion experts, anybody who was in the scientific community completely was free of the Nuremberg trials, didn't have to account for any of the atrocities that they committed, and had their whole entire histories wiped, given a clean slate, and put to work in our intelligence agencies at places like NASA and other, big corporations. And that this is the explanation that he gives in this is this idea that it's the very idea of UFOs was created by the government, that this was their counterintelligence operation to essentially, or not by the government, by that shadow government, if you will, by those ruling elite, must distinguish between the actual elected government and these particular people because they are different. That this whole idea of the UFO phenomena was created to suppress the information or the technology that they had actually created and that they had inevitably mastered. And that most of these sightings, that everything that you have been seeing today, that we have seen and have seen for the past 80 years or so, has been us in pretty much all of its forms. And it's very interesting. I don't want to spend too much time in it right now because I'm literally only 20 pages into the book. But all of that was dropped essentially in the opening chapter. But it's a very interesting tie-in with all the other bits and pieces of information that are scattered around this subject that people who do deep dives inevitably run across. And the idea of the Roswell crash actually being the Nazis' saucers that they had created, and this technology ultimately being ours, that it was invented. The more you read about Tesla's technology and the things that he was doing and how really fucked up his story actually is, that we have really no idea how much he actually did achieve. And based on a lot of the quotes that it's saying in there from the letters that this guy has tracked down and all the research he's done into it, it seems that he did crack it, that he did make all this stuff and he had it working. And that was essentially, I think he died a day before he was about to go brief the president on something. That in addition to the whole Tesla angle with this, and that this technology really being created 100 years ago and being perfected ever since in a very clandestine way, and the UFO idea as merely the cover to suppress that technology. Because once again, if people had it, then the power structures who are in place, who control our lives, wouldn't have power anymore. It would completely dethrone them, and in every possible way. And he gives all the interesting examples of you could live wherever you wanted. You wouldn't need roads anymore. You wouldn't need this infrastructure. You wouldn't need power. Like you could take your little flying vehicle that costs less than an automobile to make and requires, no maintenance, and you can, live in a mountaintop somewhere like that. It would open everything up to pure, freedom, and clean energy, and ultimately, food and everything that goes along with that for the entire world. And this is the big thing that, Greer, to his credit, talks about all the time as it pertains to what's actually taking place and who controls the power structures. I don't know how much this particular author, I'm trying to get him on. Rest assured, we will have him for an interview. I don't know how familiar he is with Greer's work. I'm sure he probably has to be, or how much of his work maybe that Greer, has pulled from. I'd be very interested to find that out. But you look at that, you look at everything that happened with Tesla, and then you look at actually one of the declassified documents that Data has tracked down, which actually I did put on the Nate Night Talks website publicly. So if you go to natenighttalks.com, you don't need to join the community for this. You can just go to the website, and you can look at the declassified document section. And it's I'm trying to actually pull it up now. You can go down and you'll see the particular 800-page document that I am referring to that basically talks about the energy suppression, the tactics and everything that have taken place in a very terrifying manner for the past, 100 years. And many people are aware of these things, of these particular scientists and inventors who, came up with a car that ran on water and, were poisoned and ran out of a diner saying, I've been poisoned, and then dropped dead, right there on the spot. How many of these people have had their lives taken, as well as how many others have just had their lives ruined or never got to, had these processes delayed so long they never actually got to see their invention ever come to light. And it basically breaks down and gives an insane amount of information on all of these cases and how many of these particular patents have existed that have been suppressed or hidden away, or whatever the case may be. There are so many, and it really adds a lot of credit to the Nikola Tesla story and what he actually did create. And I believe he did. I believe he was successful in these things. I know a lot of people in here probably do believe the same thing as well. To what level, I'm sure we might not all agree upon or don't really have an idea. But based on what I'm reading so far from this guy, it seems that he did. And this is what's been happening. And it didn't end with Tesla. They did all of these bully tactics to him, inevitably, costing him his life. And none of these things ever seeing the light of day and being squirreled away by the government and those who pull the strings of the government. And this has been ongoing with every inventor since then who deals with clean energy or infinite propulsion, like anything that basically would limit their stranglehold that they have on the population for charging money for things that we could harness freely from the very air around us. So it's very interesting. It is worth more exploration for all of us, including myself. And once again, these aren't necessarily new ideas to me, and I'm sure to a lot of you. I'm sure you've heard these things scattered throughout your research into this, or maybe you are hearing this for the first time, in which case you in particular really need to do some deep diving into this and actually go into to NateNightTalks.com right now and starting with that energy invention suppression cases document would be a very fascinating place for you to start to have a better grasp on the embargo that has taken place on essentially freedom, creativity, and ultimately, clean energy and, space travel and everything for all. It's not new, but looking at it from this light and given everything now that we've talked about in these rooms and everything that's taking place within the government disclosure right now, and the fact that Lou and the government's company line right now, they have doubled down, they have tripled down, they cannot hammer the point any clearer that these are not our technologies, when in fact it looks like they are. And we already know this. I think people who research this do believe that we reverse engineer these craft a long time ago from like the Roswell crash. But what if it was more than that? What if it was we already created these things beforehand, that it wasn't something we necessarily acquired? Or maybe, we did as well. I believe both things happened, but that this has been something that we created from scratch. Not like we had to figure it out, like Tesla cracked the code. And since then we have been building these things in a very clandestine way, almost in this, what they would call the breakaway, society kind of model. And now they're everywhere. They're showing up so much more. The government for the first time ever is admitting that they're real, and they're doing, they have intelligence reports on it. They have, the UAP task force. They're devoting resources to this. It's all over the news. This is what everyone's been talking about for the past 7 months, and really in the UFO community the past 3.5 years, as those the Tic Tac, Gimbal, and Go Fast videos were released. But the interesting thing is, which is why I'm always harping on, pay attention to the narrative. We give you the backstory in here. We give you the past 100 years of UFO history in this country so that you can better understand the narrative that's being fed to you. Because if you don't understand the government's involvement with this stuff, if you don't understand what they do actually know, and how deep this actually goes, then you're going to be likely to fall victim to the narrative that they're trying to feed you, that they're just as surprised as you are that these things are here, and why did we have mechanisms in place for our soldiers and pilots to report these things? Like, you didn't have in place because of things like the Robertson panel, which you initiated, so that people couldn't report these things, so that the subject was so stigmatized and filled with disinformation and counterintelligence that no respectable pilot, scientist, politician would ever touch it with a 10-foot pole for risk of career suicide or perhaps actual suicide, suiciding. And so it's important to know this, because you have to know what they're telling you and why they're telling it to you. It's a very crafted, particular narrative. And things like this add a little bit more credence, I guess. It seems to be backed up, I guess I should say, a little bit more by the fact that they really are doubling down on this idea that it's not our technology. They're willing to say that it is a foreign adversary before they're willing to say that it's ours. And that is absolutely crazy. That is so uncharacteristic of the United States government. And I think we all know that. Anybody who pays attention knows the chest pounding that takes place within our military and the military industrial complex to deny that these things, no matter what, are not ours, but could be a foreign adversary that has leapfrogged us technologically, like thousands of years, or that it's an extraterrestrial being, that those are the two main explanations they're giving. That is crazy. Like that, there's something really wrong with that. And that's why you must pay attention to these things. And why it would make even more sense that if there is, validity to the author, William Line, of the occult ether physics, that these were all invented, that they were invented in Germany, which we all know. They were the first people to be working on this. And perfected here in the United States and Russia and other places, who obviously we were all trying to take their top researchers and people that they had. But this technology existed then. It was created. The code was cracked by Tesla. And since then, it's been being produced and perfected on massive scales, from even things like, not just little saucers or discs or chevron shapes, but actual gigantic motherships, like very, very big versions of these craft. And we had that gentleman, Tony, I don't know if he's here right now, in today, but he's shared his story the past couple of nights of the mothership that he saw in South Africa, which is a freaking incredible story. But it's interesting, and I think it's worth more of a deep dive into this as being, and it's not, once again, far off from what Greer has been saying, is that they're ours, but he does say the same thing. It's a mix of us and them, which we all agree upon. But it seems that, I think, with the major increase in UFO sightings that's taking place right now, this major influx, that it seems like it would be us more than anything, because there's no such thing as an accident. The timing of this, everything the government's been laying out, admitting this for the first time ever, dumping resources into this, creating task force, et cetera, that it seems too much of a coincidence that things are really on the rise right now as far as UFO sightings. But that could also be the consciousness component that I mentioned earlier, of just more people being aware now, accepting this into their reality and their paradigm to be real, and therefore now they are able to see them, where before their subconscious just blocked them out because it was told that this was absolute tinfoil hat wearing nonsense and that we are the center of the universe and there's no intelligent life here. So that was it. I think it's worthy for more exploration, and that is the point of everything in these rooms, is to have meaningful dialogue and discourse about people's opinions on this subject. People who do the research, because everyone's going to have different opinions. We're going to agree on the majority of it, I'm sure, but to hear all these different opinions and really listen to them, take them seriously. You don't have to agree with it, but hear it out, because if you don't, then we're never going to grow. We're never going to get to the bottom of a subject that is so stigmatized and filled with disinformation and lies that it's not going to happen outside of the community of all of us getting together, doing our own independent research with discernment and intellectual honesty, and then sharing that with each other and having real problem-solving conversations, trying to think about what the likely scenarios are, what the likely explanations for these things are. And so I thought this was a good one to bring up, because I definitely think there's a lot of weight to it. And for people who think that the idea of intelligent life is a stretch, this definitely would not be a stretch to think that. And we already know conspiracies are very real, and that the government or these powerful elite have done horrendous things in the name of maintaining their power and secrecy. And so, taking out one of the best inventors and minds the world has ever known, and taking his findings and squirreling them away for their own gain, that doesn't seem really too hard of a pill to swallow. Not to me, anyway. But anyway, so that's the opening monologue. And with that, we're going to open it up to everybody else. And I should have probably said this before, but I'm Nate. It's late. Let's talk. And I know I've really been dropping the ball on that. So do raise your hand. We'll bring you up. I do want to, I guess, start because we are on the Tesla idea right now. That if we want to discuss that a little further before diving into movies and various UFO current events, we can, just if we want to maintain that thought process and then branch off as it's natural, we can do that. But Silver, Haley, or Dada, do you guys have anything that you want to add to that little monologue?
Hey, this is Silver. I don't know.
You
Nate,
got some bad feedback, brother.
do I? Hold on 1 second then. There. How's that?
Much better.
Okay, so I'm not sure if Nate, you remember this. I used to tell everyone who would listen, but Tesla is my blood relative on my mom's side of the family. His mother was my great great grandmother's sister. So there's some family stories, but most my understanding of what is talked about is inaccurate regarding him and the um, money and everything else. He was somewhat of an altruist and really was trying to do great things for humanity. The vast majority of people he dealt with were looking to make money. Westinghouse respected him and um, had great regard for him. Paid for his ability to live for the last several years of his life. And Yeah, in the 1880s, more in the 90s, he was doing things. All the weaponry that we talk about, sonic weapons and so forth, was all his stuff in the 1890s, late 80s and 1890s. There's stories that I think are in print somewhere about how he could turn any vehicle, any car that had a battery, early prototypes or whatever, into or I think he had to install an alternator or something like that, and he could turn them into a free energy device and had like a little box that he would carry with him. Some interesting stuff, and I've long believed from some of the stories and all of the books that I've read over the years that he definitely was involved with anti-gravity and possibly the very technology that all of our secret, quote unquote secret spacecraft, that isn't alien tech, it's actually Tesla tech, because he was doing this stuff 40 years before Roswell, over 40 years before Roswell. But Yeah, there's just so much shit and bullshit about him and J.P. Morgan and everything else. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say. I think I think the topic is great, and I'm curious to see what everyone has to say and bring to the table. I'm Silver. I'm complete for now.
Thank you, Silver. And yeah, this is the thing with Tesla and the very story, is there's a lot of conflicting information about it, because so much of it was taken and classified or hidden away or sold to the highest bidders or those who were controlling things. And so it was all taken from underneath his dead body. in that hotel room. And so there's a lot of differing opinions, but that is ultimately why we are having this conversation, or any of these conversations, is to hear all of them and weigh them, and at the very least do our own due diligence on these subjects, and then arrive at whatever conclusion you want. Ultimately, that is our right, but just making sure that we hear everything out before doing that. It's very important. Thank you, Silver. Haley, I know you're busy. Did you want to add anything?
I can jump in for a few minutes.
Perfect.
Thanks, Nate. This is Haley speaking. Hi, everyone. It's good to be back here with all of you. I'll be doing a lot of listening tonight, but to your opening monologue, Nate, I'll just say that it's really refreshing to enter our conversation tonight with that perspective. And you do often speak of this 80-20 or 90-10 in terms of evidence-based sightings. And we've also in many rooms addressed the divisive nature of various ufologist figures and opinions within the UFO community, and how that's been highlighted in recent podcast interviews, as well as after the Cosmic Hoax release. And I think it's incredibly significant to create space for people who want to focus on that genuine, say, 10% of evidence without making too many big leaps and jumps, because it discredits rather than informs. And actually, Nate, you do a better job at this than most of the figures that I've been introduced to through these Monday recaps. And I don't always want to have to suspend belief entirely to draw conclusions. Like, I want those facts and truths to support, let's say, what we already believe. And sometimes the thin lines drawn detract from the central truths around UFO disclosure and conscious existence. And being able to remain open-minded as we do in these rooms opens the doors for new individuals like myself to enter into these topics and research with discernment, and feel like it's acceptable to be introduced to, let's say, this topic of Tesla, and to question and always question without it feeling like we're being too skeptical or pushing back against a community and a world that we've taken interest in. And so with that, I look forward to a fun conversation ahead. And this is Haley with the curls, done speaking.
Haley with the curls. So good to have you back, love. God, so amazing. What a delivery. I've been missing your room resets.
I missed you. I missed you too.
Just good to see you. Thank you for that, and could not agree more. I'm going to stop this exit now. Otherwise, it will persist for the rest of the night, and we don't want that. Or maybe we do. It depends on the night. But thank you, Haley, and welcome back. Good to see you. Data, my man, I'm sure you have something to say to this and would love to hear it.
Yes. I've posted quite a bit of quite a bit. There's not that many documents yet on there today, but maybe about 6 or 7, and out of those, 4 of them are science related, and this is in the community. And so we have advanced propulsion studies, teleportation physics studies, and we've got some controlling the weather research and documents straight from the military. Amazing stuff, right? And there's a human paranormal capabilities paper that the military wrote as well. Actually the military didn't write it, they released it. It was an Asian study, a really interesting study to read. Yeah, I agree with you, Nate, about I've always had the idea that we are the Greys, and then of course my theory behind it is maybe a little different as to how we became the Greys, and I believe that we're in the time now that we're affecting our future, in the sense that with the radio technology that we're creating without being conscious of what I believe. Well, we might be conscious of what it's going to be doing to our bodies in the future, but it's almost as though we don't care. And in the short side of it is that I believe that these extraterrestrial beings are us, and we are trying to get back into our original form thus the abductions, and maybe some sort of warning signs as well. Hey, stop this now before it gets too bad. Help us, so that we don't become these, the Greys. One type of extraterrestrial being that is known. The technology aspect of it, there's so much documentation about, the anti-gravity systems, the specialized, propulsion systems that we have. There's a lot in there, and even in the documents that are posted, the research data is quite compelling. There's images, right, and how to actually, traverse through wormholes. And that there's math behind it. These documents are written by university scientists that worked with the military in laboratories in order to conduct these experiments, and it's just really, really compelling information. And again, this information that we're sharing, so those are my own views as far as where we're at in the world today. It's not fact by any means. My own, I've come to those conclusions on my own based off of documents like this. I've spoken before about 5G technology, and so of course everyone makes their own decisions, and it is important to do that. Again, I always mention it. So these documents are the research of the military, of the of the government, and whatever conclusions you make from that research is what you make. That is your truth, and maybe that is what you are supposed to think and know, and because it's what suits you best. And so no conclusion is wrong, or none is right as well, because we don't have they're not disinformation. And so with that said, hopefully everyone can come to a great conclusion as to what's actually happening. The technology that's been out there for some time, is it us, or is it another interdimensional being? And with that, I am Data. Thank you.
Thank you, Data. Well said indeed, and a great point to reiterate is that ultimately nobody here is claiming to know the truth or the real story. We've done a tremendous amount of research into this, into the most fact-based components of it that there are, and have arrived through logical reasoning, through firsthand experience with these craft, as well as in multidimensional interactions through some of the most profound psychedelics on the planet. There's a story that was pieced together, and certain narratives that we all subscribe to. They're all ultimately a little bit different, which is the beauty of it, and why the people are up here who are up here, is to add that diversity of thought to the subject matter. But we're all here to learn the same way that you are, and to kick around these ideas and to hear these different perspectives and other people's research and conclusions that they've come to, because it's ultimately going to help us all. With that, it is top of the hour, so I'll do a really quick room reset. Hello, everyone. This is Nate Night Talks. Tesla, movies, UFO current events, and more. For those of you who just tuned in, bummer, you totally missed the opening monologue, which all had to do with a book in particular that spawned this topic for me, which was Occult Ether Physics, Tesla's Ideal Flying Machines and the Conspiracy to Conceal It, by William Line, 4th Revised and Expanded Edition. Was essentially diving into the UFO subject through a slightly different framework, one which, once again, is not a far departure from what most people believe, as far as it being a mix of extraterrestrial, ET craft that we're seeing, as well as our own. But the idea of what if the craft that are ours are far more in number and are far more frequently the thing that are witnessed by people, and were not created through reverse engineering, that they were in fact created by technology that Tesla created himself and discovered himself, that was ultimately suppressed and then stolen out from under his dead body. And there's a lot of very interesting corroborating evidence to kind of support this over the years, and various opinions and things like that, especially as it pertains to the Nazi Bell and the Werner von Braun World War II component to all of this, and Tesla selling this technology to the Germans because the Americans wouldn't buy it because they were in bed with a lot of the energy companies whose Tesla's inventions threatened. And so I've been diving into that, but obviously we're going to talk about a number of things tonight, such as our favorite ET movies, if you will, or sci-fi movies, anything that really we've watched that we love and we think is actually very close to a form of disclosure, or is a really unique, interesting concept that maybe doesn't get enough praise or notoriety, or little Easter eggs that a lot of people might not be aware of, such as things like Close Encounters. The very end, Spielberg references the Serpo project, which a lot of people aren't familiar with, by having 12 people board the ship at the very end. So fun little things like that. I just think it's going to be a fun conversation to dive into with everybody, as well as just some of the current events. There's been a tremendous influx in UFOs. It's kind of crazy, the amount of people who are sending me these things, but as well as the Instagram pages or the YouTube pages that I frequent, to, I think, do some of the best job of putting out UFO footage and vetting it and being quick to say if it was proved to be a hoax type thing. That there is some incredibly compelling footage that has come out, and I'll make sure I post that in the show notes on the Nate Night Talks as well. And with that, as always, if you are not and you want to be able to support this podcast, which now it's Clubhouse Room, but the podcast itself and the community and research database, please go to Nate Night Talks. NateNightTalks.com and join the community. On there, there are 5 declassified documents right now that are available for anybody to download. One of them was referenced tonight. And so definitely check those out. It's worthy of your own investigation anyway, to see the actual evidence and proof that exists on this subject. And that is what we're trying to give you. But within the community itself, there's going to be thousands of them, and we're adding to them every week. And so, but your support is greatly needed. Growing this is not possible without you. So I truly am grateful for those of you who have joined, and for any of you who do want to. And now we've opened it up so that the little $5 a month thing gives you full access to all the declassified documents, all the experience topics, all the research, everything therein. Cost of a cup of coffee, and it will help me build this out to what I hope it will be, which is kind of the ultimate database and safe haven for people who are seeking the truth and trying to figure this stuff out, whether it's UFOs, extraterrestrials, consciousness, psychedelics, ancient history, true ancient history, secret societies, whatever it is. So that's the housekeeping, and we will keep it going. Scotty, I know you just popped in, so do you want a little bit, Heather, going to meet you, to get your bearings, or did you have anything that you wanted to say regarding any of that? I know you just popped in, so we can get back to you if you want.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit to acclimate. I'm also I'm on the Nate Night Talks community right now, writing something into the show notes. I took a really cool video that it there's something I found of my father's that fucking blew me away. My father passed about 8 days ago, and here on the mainland, going through some of his things, helping my mother, and he kept very few things that meant something to him, and I found something really fucking cool that is extremely relevant to the topics that we discuss here. So I took a video of it. I'm going to put it on the Nate Night community website. So I will come back when that is done.
Thank you, Scotty. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what that is. Awesome. Happy to have you here, man. I know it's a difficult time right now, so we're love and thoughts are with you, and just grateful that you're even showing up to support as always, man. Legend. Appreciate you. Dylan.
My favorite movie.
We're going in order, Heather. PTR order. Sorry, love. That's all right. Dylan, my man, you are up. Is there anything that you want to add to the Tesla thing, or share as a movie, or any particular UFO current event that you want to discuss?
Yeah. I got two. One, The Fourth Kind. That was a movie that actually left me scared. I don't know if anyone's seen that. It's got the girl from Resident Evil, Mila
Mila
Jovovich.
Jokovic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's based on a true story.
Yeah, that shit was scary. Left me I live alone, so that had me really scared. Just it was an interesting style of movie and a different type of just a different way of presenting the information, which then allowed you to kind of make your own decision a little bit. I feel like sometimes alien movies will give you, all right, here's the deal, here's the alien, here's the UFO, here's how it is. I mean, with Tesla, it just made me think of the movie Prestige, but that wasn't really aliens as much as just the power of what Tesla potentially, was going towards. Just I thought that was an interesting take. Another alien movie I'll throw out, District 9. You know,
So good.
there's a movie that presents it in like a documentary, and then here's how we would have to coexist, and just the way they played it as if they got here. Obviously it wasn't in New York City, which was I mean, the movie's genius. If anyone hasn't seen it, everything about it is just really, really smart. But um I mean, to me, that's even like the first time I think I've ever seen the idea of aliens coming here, and they were more vulnerable. Like, we all talk about how Earth is maybe a young planet, or we're all a bunch of idiot humans and the aliens are laughing at us. Like, what if the aliens fucked up? What if their planet sucks? What if they expanded their technology too fast and a nuclear bomb went off and they destroyed their own and they had to come here and they ended up making, like, just that thought of, like, man, I wonder why the narrative is so strong that aliens are smarter, more advanced, and they look down on us, and we're destroying our planet. Well, like, why don't we question the aliens a little bit more and have a different take on what they're going through? Like, man, like, maybe be empathetic towards how the aliens are, what their life must be like. But yeah, those two movies mainly, The Fourth Kind and then District 9, that'll just really blow your mind. But I really hope aliens are real, man. I hope I see them before I die. And I really want to read the book that you were talking about that kind of says, that maybe the technology's been here and it might be something of our government, or just of the secret societies that know how to control the information and know what the true technology is and the powers that we have. But this stuff fascinates me, so I'm just going to go back to listening, and hopefully somebody's got some incredible story. I also, like Silver, quickly, am actually related to the long lost original tribe of aliens that helped build the pyramids. I believe they were the original Jews, the first Jewish tribe to help build the pyramids, and we had superpowers from what I heard. Which is how we were able to be slaves and build those pyramids and lift the stones. It was Jewish strength. No, I'm kidding. That's all I got for now. Appreciate you guys.
You working on your bit for tomorrow night?
I just felt like rambling for a minute.
I love it, man. No, it's great. And Dylan's gonna be at Laugh Factory tomorrow night, 5 o'clock, right? 5:30.
Yeah, 5 o'clock. I go on.
5 o'clock. If you're in LA, go check it out. Appreciate you, Dylan.
Oh, real quick, Nate. I just got you'll like it, in the world of space, some Jedi mindfuck mushrooms. I'm excited. Hopefully the aliens will resonate with these special mushrooms, and maybe I will get beamed up perhaps. But I'm excited that they have something Star Wars related.
Well, that's a great name. So I think you're already starting off on the right path. And
have you not heard of them? Is this not like a universal big deal? I heard they're a very rare, special, thing here. The super Jedi mindfuck or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. Silver, you heard of those?
No, I haven't,
All
unfortunately,
right.
but they sound amazing.
Yeah.
You're selling them, so we're buying it now. So it's not literally, obviously, for that sake. Appreciate you,
My
Dylan.
opinion, thoughts are not my own. I'm
Yeah,
done.
and District 9, phenomenal movie, and the same people who did it also made the Chappie, which was basically the exact same
Yep.
movie, slightly different
And
premise.
Elysium. And Elysium was
Yeah.
also interesting.
Yeah, they're all very similar, but all great movies. I mean, District 9 definitely at the top of that list out of those three. But appreciate you, man. Bobby, you are up. Good to see you again. Welcome to the stage.
Hey Nate, hey family, thanks for having me. Yeah, the obsession of Nikola Tesla with 369 has always fascinated me, and studied a bit into it, and yeah, I wanted to know you guys, and you guys looked into that and how he kind of lived his life, walking around the block 3 times and cleaning his plates with 18 napkins, and this kind of methodical living underneath a different numerology kind of standpoint. I'd love to pick your brain if anyone knows anything about that or shine some light on that. The way I looked at them, instead of seeing them as just numbers, I seen them as symbols, and the three pointing towards our spines, and us getting familiar with our spines, and the information kind of coming up and down our biological or bioenergetic field, and the 6 and the 9, with the 6 looking more like a pregnant belly, the feminine side of our body, and the 9 being like a big chest, and a penis being the masculine side of the body. And yeah, I kind of seen it as like an ascension kind of portal, to be able to, if you were, say, raising your consciousness or getting high, some say, if you got to the point of the pinnacle of this kind of crystal pyramid that were of consciousness, or the all-seeing eye, the furthest point away from the center of the earth. Yeah, I feel like the balance has to be so key when you're building a building of consciousness that's quite high, and yeah, having balance on all spectrums of self, whether they be a yogic thing on the body, or a balanced hemisphere of the brain being fearless, and which is kind of being emotionally intelligent through a feminine side, or also IQ in the masculine side of the brain, learning how to linear version of time to get to that peak of consciousness. And yeah, I'd love to see if anyone else knows anything more about this obsession of Tesla's with the 369.
Appreciate you, Bobby, and that's really interesting thing to bring up, and not sure how many people are actually familiar with it, but as far as a deep dive, God, I'm trying to think of who I know, someone who's really into like sacred math and sacred geometry. I mean, the math ultimately is the building blocks of life, right? And synchronicity and everything that kind of goes into it, even from like the Fibonacci sequence, which weirdly enough, I don't know if I want to throw this brilliant idea on, but I thought about doing a clothing company that was based on Fibonacci within like the weave itself. And apparently somebody's done something similar, but it's just not that practical, and they can only make like scarves or something like that. But I thought, like, as far as like the building blocks of life, the math of life, having something like that, the ancients did this all over, especially in Egypt. I mean, all ancient civilizations that created essentially these massive megalithic structures that we see today that have stood up since the last ice age, and we truly don't know their age, despite what current academics say. That stuff has been completely disproven, especially as it pertains to the age of the Sphinx, based on the water erosion around the enclosure itself. Dates it back roughly at least 11,500 BC, and there's, if you watch Magical Egypt, which any of you who've listened to Joe Rogan at any point in time, whenever he has people like Graham Hancock on, or I'm blanking on the geologist right now. He's the one who made that discovery actually, but he was a part of John Anthony West's Magical Egypt series, which you have to pay for through their website. It's so worth it. It is one of the best documentaries ever made about the true history of Egypt and the explanation that goes against what popular academia chooses to say about it, and the real story behind that, and what Egyptologists do to suppress this information or keep outside archaeologists away from coming in and going to different digs. And it's very interesting. It's very similar to actually the suppression of energy technology and the stuff with Tesla that we were talking about. Randall Carlson, I believe is his name. I think that just hit me if I'm
What's
mistaken.
it called again?
Magical Egypt. And
where can we find it? Netflix or HBO?
No, you have to pay for it through their website itself, unfortunately. But it's literally, it's amazing. I mean, it's absolutely incredible and will blow your mind. And John Anthony West is really it's because of him that we have people like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson today, who are doing the new updated analytics and analysis of our ancient civilizations through what we know now, and far better interpretations, and are realizing, or many want us to believe that we were, clubbing people in the head and dragging them into caves and building mud huts, and these, older days of our civilization, that we were in fact, technologically and I believe consciously and spiritually far beyond where we are now. And proved it to future generations like us by erecting the megalithic structures that they did, that still stand the test of time and boggle us that we can't replicate and reproduce even at the height of our ingenuity, or if we did, it would be such a costly, difficult endeavor that nobody would do it. And so, but it's interesting, I digress, apologies, but so within that, there's so much of how the foundation of Egypt is built that has to do with similar things of sacred numbers. I'm blanking on particular which ones they are, but they usually go within like the 3, 6, 9. I don't know if there's anybody on stage who is specializes in this, or in the audience who knows specializes more at the numerology, I believe is what it's called. Scotty, did you?
Actually, there's a gentleman who co-hosts something in my club. He is a very, very proficient at numerology. But one thing I was going to say is another person who presents in my club sometimes is Venice, who is the producer of the video series that you were just discussing about Egypt. So if you want me to bring her in here sometime, let me know. We could get her in here. She'd be a really cool resource.
100%. 100% bring her in here. That would be, if I could get her and Graham Hancock in here with Randall Carlson and Michael Shermer.
Yeah,
shoot.
we could. Yeah, that would be cool. So I'll reach out to her in the next few days.
I can give you a little comment on some of the numbers that were relevant. One of them that's really important that Graham Hancock likes to point out is the number 72, which is related to 720, which is 2 times 360 number of degrees. And there's all these questions about why are these various numbers, like why do we use 360 degrees? Why do we have 24 hours in the day? Why do we have all of these things? It has to do with the Babylonian number system being base 60. And then what's interesting, of course, is when you connect all these various numbers with the pyramid, you have both phi and pi coming out of it, and basically all of these have to do with resonance, which was going back to why would Tesla be interested in 3, 6, and 9? Because resonance and harmonics and sacred geometry as well are related to whole number relations. In other words, you have to have whole number relations between things. They have to be evenly divisible for harmonics and things like that to work. So it's all part of the same, set of information. It all kind of goes together. But if I continue, something I was going to say about your monologue there is that, I agree that aliens are for sure real. And as a matter of fact, now given everything that we know about life, and especially extremophiles, and there's even the fellow who's on here, he's like the head scientist for NASA, was commenting the other day in some room about how there's more biomass underneath the surface of the earth than there is on the top of it, and that includes the ocean. And just there, it's an absolutely ludicrous idea to suppose that we're the only life in the universe. I mean, it just doesn't match with there's just so much overwhelming, well accepted, science that makes it the probability of us being the only life in the universe is basically zero. It's as close to zero as really you can get. And then the idea, even according to the Drake equation, which used to be this thing that people said it was low probability that we'd have civilizations here. Well, now updating it with the newest info, apparently civilizations at a technological level at which they should be within a certain time span that they given that they last a certain period, there should be at least, I think it was 25 in the Milky Way galaxy alone, according to the Drake equation. That's like our best guess of the likelihood of a civilization being contactable and being out there currently right now, based on all of our science, the best we can do. So yeah, aliens are for sure real, according to science. The best projections of science, given everything that we know. Just the question is whether or not they're capable of getting here. And one of the primary things that people cite for why they couldn't get here has to do with the speed of light, and that actually relates back to this book. The ether being eliminated theoretically because of Einstein's work is actually part of the cover ups, because as I pointed out many times, and he actually does mention it here in this book. I've only gotten to about page 60. But he does mention that in 1920, which is 5 years after general relativity, 15 years after special relativity, Einstein gave an entire lecture about the necessity of ether, in which he kind of rounds out with space without ether is unthinkable. And so, here's Einstein saying ether is an absolute necessity. It's still today, anywhere you go, you're told that ether was eliminated by Einstein. How does that make any sense? So there's some interesting things there. And then going back to the idea of is it us or is it them? Well, I totally agree with you that I think that it's probably a mix of both. That's been kind of my experience of what I've seen, is that it's very likely both something else out there and something that we've been developing. And but I wanted to throw out a couple of interesting ideas. So one of the ideas of who it might be, what might be involved, going back to you guys mentioned Graham Hancock, and one of the things that people tend to see is that perhaps all this ancient information, all of it ends up relating back to physics over and over and over. It ends up relating specifically to to all the things that Tesla talks about when you read his writings. And so there's a really interesting thing there, that perhaps what's happened is over and over, maybe mankind has actually reached this breakaway civilization thing, because one of the things that we have right now, we have the people who don't like technology, and that's happened repeatedly. It's called being a Luddite actually was a group of people who eschewed the development of technology, much before the people around that we know of that don't they don't like cars and stuff now. But so Luddites are a normal thing where people don't trust technology. And so, if human beings were continuing to develop, eventually we already have this idea where people kind of feel like you'll lose your soul if you merge in any way with technology. If you have any advancements, to your brain through technology and things like that, that in one way or another you're going to lose your soul, or something that's going to make them where they really dislike technology. And so we're already at the cusp of people who are being enhanced by technology being looked down on as soulless or hated or whatever by people who sort of have those ideas. So the idea of breakaway civilization now in modern times, that kind of makes a lot of sense. So that's one of the interesting things that a lot of people have talked about, that that perhaps it's us, but maybe it's a previous version of us. Um, but once again, the idea that there aren't aliens out there is absolutely ludicrous, and the idea that it is that relativity, even within relativity, the idea that the speed of light is something that would keep them from getting here also doesn't make sense, because according to relativity, if you are though you'd have to give up on ever returning to your place of origin in a time period that everyone would be dead, etc., because how time dilation works in special relativity is that it makes your time um, you have much slower, but space shrinks up, so you could actually travel these amazing distances within a reasonable lifetime. It's just the period of time that would pass for everybody else would be immense. So even within special relativity, as is misinterpreted today, it's still not a good reason to say that alien craft couldn't get here. It's nonsensical from a variety of ways. So there's a lot of different things there. I'm looking forward to talking with you more about some of the people that I've met along the way, like Jack Sarfati is an interesting individual who I believe might be involved in some of the disinformation once you get down to the very, very deep dive levels of the technology. He's an interesting character, though I'm not sure, but I have my suspicions since I know he's associated with the CIA, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun conversation to be had here in the very near future.
Could I throw something into the mix regarding what he just said?
Yeah, really quick, Dylan. So we just want to make sure we get the PTR order. But yeah, fill in.
Yeah, super quick. So, if what your theory or what you're saying is that they could come here, but it would take a long time, I would say, well, why do most of the UFO sightings seem as if they stop by for a quick second, they want to take a look, and then they're gone? If I spent a lifetime or 10, if I spend an hour in traffic, I'm going to hang out at that location a while. If I'm spending years traveling as an alien and then I finally get to Earth, why would I only be here for like 2 seconds to zip around and then leave again? I feel like that would
Yeah,
be like,
I think it varies. There's
yeah.
so many that are already here. It varies.
Yeah, I don't actually believe that that's true. I was telling you what the mainstream interpretation is, which I don't believe in the mainstream interpretation. It's actually a misinterpretation of special relativity that I get into very deep, and I just didn't want to, go along over. But basically, there's still relativistic physics that fit with ether and do not cause that sort of effect. And it's still relativistic. The math is still the same. It's just a matter of the way it's been interpreted and fed to us. The interpretation is wrong, whereas the math stays the same. And that's a very long conversation. But like I said, I don't want to get into. But yes, you're right. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have to be that way. I'm just saying within that interpretation, it only takes a long time, not within their lifetime, but within everybody else's. That's according to this specific interpretation that is the mainstream interpretation of special relativity, that if you get very close to the speed of light, everybody else will see you as taking millions of years to get here, but to you it would take a very short period of time if you were on that craft that's traveling very close to the speed of light. So that's just, I'm just saying that it's I don't agree with that explanation of relativity. I mean, that paradigm and that interpretation of relativity, but within the mainstream interpretation of relativity, it still it still works, and it's not really a problem as they tend to say. And then if you also understand what it is that I've been communicating for about 15 years, and that is that there is an alternative interpretation of relativity that is based on ether, then you actually kind of throw away some of that.
Awesome, and thank you, Shiva. So, what I mentioned earlier in the monologue, for those of you who are here, was talking about the, I guess if you want to call it synchronicity, or just the manifestation law of attraction of the second you begin to think something to be possible or real, or you want something or whatever it is, the whole buying, a new Tesla thing, suddenly you see, Teslas everywhere. It works with all things in the creation of our reality and our paradigm every second of every day. And when I was entertaining these ideas of in my head over the past, many months actually, as it's pertained to the government narrative, the intelligence report, and all of this, I just kept going back and forth in my mind, like, what if these really all ours, and this is what Greer says to a degree. Like I said, most people in ufology who are deep into the subject and done their due diligence and spent time do believe that it's a mix of us and them, these UFOs that are seen. But the idea of what if it's predominantly us, and started kind of kicking that around just based on how the government is disclosing this, how they're rolling this all out, and with that. A number of documentaries were just randomly sent to me. I think Joe sent me a couple, or interviews, not documentaries, but a couple interviews with certain authors who happen to be taking this similar stance, especially as it pertains to the Nazi bill and World War II. and then Shiva popped in of the rooms and was, DMing me a number of different things, and we're talking about. I think he referenced something when I was talking about Tesla in one of the rooms, and he was the one that shot over that book, The Occult Ether Physics, and he hadn't read it yet, but he's reading it now at the same time I am, which is funny, but. Talking about doing, a room on this and kind of a deep dive into Tesla, into the ether, into a different reevaluation of our past as it pertains to this subject, as an exercise more than anything, because it's incredibly needed and it's valuable. And until we do all that and we exhaust all explanations, we're never going to arrive at the truth. And but it's just funny because that was all a part of it. So I shifted my idea, my thought process more to being like, I should really dive into this angle with this, given how the government is acting right now, given them doubling down on saying it's not theirs. I already know it's theirs. I already know they've reverse engineered these things or believe it to be true anyway. But, what if it's a little bit bigger than that and there's more to that story? And within that, then suddenly just the universe just throws at me all of these resources, whether people, books, or interviews with other authors about their books. All these perspectives that happen to be talking about the same thing that I was interested to do more of a deep dive into, and it's just fascinating. And it's not fascinating; it's normal. It's exactly what it is, and we just need to realize this. That's how everything works. It's how our reality works, and how where your energy goes, there it flows. I'm totally butchering that, but. Something along those lines, either way, it will happen if you're thinking about it. You will attract these things to yourself once you change your frequency and begin resonating in this new idea, this new plane, the universe. It's like, oh, here you go. And it all kind of fell in my lap. And so it's been a very fun dive into this and exploring this idea in more depth. And so Shiva was one of the people that was a part of that. And it also looks like he's doing his deep dive into this particular book as well. So I think we'll, at some point in the very near future, do a room with talking about all of this stuff in more of an expanded kind of way. But for now, thank you, Shiva. And Akash, you are up. Welcome to the stage. Akash, are you there? Going once, going twice. Marge, you are up. Welcome to the stage. Oh, don't make me go 2 for 2. Marge, are you there? There
I
she
am
is.
here.
Okay. Welcome.
Mostly just here to listen. Thank you. This is super interesting, and I appreciate a lot of this conversation here. Mostly here to listen, but I own a Tesla, and I appreciate and really have a lot of respect for Nikola Tesla, and yeah, mostly here to listen, but also if anybody has questions in regarding the cars, I've been a Tesla owner since 2018, early 2018. I've been interested in the science and the company and Elon Musk and all the things that he's done to kind of help move some of that technology forward into and put it into the hands of people and help them become energy independent. With solar and Tesla cars. I'm here to answer questions, and if anybody, you can always DM me as well. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself and let you guys know that I am here if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Marge. Definitely a different Tesla, but nonetheless, appreciate you being here. And yeah, if there are any Tesla questions out there for the automobile, feel free to DM Marge.
Imagine if Tesla was here right now, if Nikola was here. Wow.
I know.
He is. He's living through silver.
That's true. Ooh, Bobby, good point. Godrat, you are up. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Nice to hear you and joining this interesting club that you have started. By the way, as you said, that assume that somehow right now there are some secret facilities that producing such a phenomena as same as UFO. Okay, And then, according to the reporter, going back to the German investigation concerning UFO in 1945, I think, exactly, doesn't matter any difference, the decade 40 in the past. Okay, I'm asking one further question. Uh, I saw the film and the German trying to somehow establish and producing such equipment and sources like UFO. Okay, but the point is that okay, they even test it, they fly it. Is it that did it have the possibility and ability of the phenomena that we are facing right now and seeing in right now? The movement, the high speed. Who can say and who can announce that okay, I myself, I can somehow establish something like UFO and trying to send it to sky. Okay, this is something else. And having the ability and reaching the same speed and same movement and same achievement that they have, and they are acting in the sky. This is the point and the most important question that could be raised for people who are saying such a words in different places, you know. This is the main point. Okay, yes, some facilities similar to the UFO, okay, they build. No thought about. We assume that these are correct. It doesn't mean that, did it mean that they have the ability and high speed movement that has been said and has been reported during 70 years ago or 80 years ago up to now? This is the
So I wanted to add one other thing. I think you mentioned, you said this is a different type of Tesla. This is Marge again.
Well, hold on really quick, Marge. I don't think Godrat finished. We want to make sure that we be respectful of people when they're talking really quick. Godrat, did you finish what you were saying? Or did we lose him? Godrat?
yes, please.
Did you finish what you were saying? It sounded like you got cut off on your mic.
Okay, I will leave the room and come back again. Perhaps my
No,
voice would be.
we heard you. I just wanted to make sure that you were done making your point, right? I just want to make sure that we heard everything you wanted to say.
Look, I said only, I repeated in a few words again.
No, I
For
understand what you said, Godrat. You were basically saying that how do we know based on, yes, we know that there's facilities that have these type of things. We know it's been going back since the 40s, but how do we know that we actually reverse engineered these type of crafts successfully given the speed and maneuverability that they exhibit, correct?
Yes. This is my main point, as you said, by my words. Okay. By the way, yes. If we are coming and assuming, okay, if we say, okay, these years in from 20 or 21, some human in the any countries trying to establish or by doing reverse engineering, achieving this kind of speed also, and making similar to the UFO phenomena, yes, that is acceptable. Perhaps. Not, I'm not sure. I'm saying, okay, this could be possible within 20 years later up to now, these decades, 2 decades, from 2000 to 2021. Okay, this is acceptable. But what are the explanation about what happened and what had been taking place in the Roswell about 70 years ago. Was any sources on the ground, on the earth, able to achieve and have such a sophisticated instrument and ability to do and to make it? This is something else.
Yes, and that is what we touched on, and thank you, Godrat. Is that it is, and I believe most people who investigate this subject and have done so for a long period of time with discernment and intellectual honesty, believe that it is a mix of both us and them, the things that we see. And yeah, the question is, up until pretty much the opening monologue I gave today regarding this book and Tesla's technology being suppressed and locked away, and the whole story that goes within that based on this book. Is at what point did we achieve that? At what point did we successfully reverse engineer these craft? And the angle with this, and some would have said, obviously it would have to be post, 1947, post Roswell, because even people like Bob Lazar, in the 80s were brought in to attempt to reverse engineer these things, which would imply that we still hadn't successfully done it at that period of time. Now, that would be true of an actual extraterrestrial aircraft, of a particular propulsion system that a far more advanced civilization would have. But if what is put forth in this book about what Tesla actually did achieve, and he mentions and says that he did in some various cryptic notes and stuff before his death, was that he would produce a craft, essentially, I can say it right here. It was implied that in producing the ropes, Tesla coil was used to produce rapidly varying electrostatic potentials to create longitudinal sound waves in the ether for hundreds of miles through the air. The equal and opposite reaction of these waves was to bring back the ship what are called tubes of force, which carry mechanical movement and what Tesla description appears to say to lock onto a huge mass of either molecules to pull the ship forward. I witnessed the ship I saw in 1953, this is the author, of electrostatic envelope surrounded a ship as it moved through the air without friction, shockwave, or sonic boom at around 36,000 miles per hour. And he dives into basically the components, the schematics of the things that Tesla had created and or hypothesized, theorized, and that we will, I guess, never know how much of it actually was successful or created. But based on the information that has not been suppressed and locked away from, Tesla's still, cooling corpse, unfortunately, when he died, we don't know how far it actually went. But we do know that based on the physics, based on everything that he had achieved before, the things he uncovered about zero-point energy, the ether, and a number of other things, that there's definitely been some very shady dealings with him and the suppression of information and the stealing of information around his death. And if these flying vehicles that he was talking about making or anything were possible, if that's what we're going with, we're entertaining this idea tonight, then yes, you would have craft that would perform in the exact same ways as these UFOs, going 36,000 miles an hour with zero air resistance, zero sonic boom, right angle turns, the maneuverability that we witness today and have witnessed, ultimately since I think the dawn of time, which is why even with this idea that predominantly these may be ours, it still doesn't account for all the encounters going all the way back through ancient history and through mythology, through religion, through things depicted in hieroglyphs and petroglyphs throughout all of time. And so that is why I believe, and I know many other people do believe, that it is definitely a mix of our technology and an ET technology that we see in the skies. But this theory, this idea put forth in this book would imply that perhaps the majority of what we've been seeing over the past 70, 80 years or so have in fact been ours more than they have been of an extraterrestrial origin. That is the point of it. But appreciate you, Godrat, as always. Trevor, you are up, my man. Good to see you.
Thank you. I think Marge wanted to say something really quick, so I'll let her take the floor for just a second.
Oh, thank you, Trevor. And real quick, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I'm new to this format. In our Tesla universe Clubhouse, we have a little bit more of like an open dialogue. It's not as formal, so please accept my apologies. Um, my main point was that I think you mentioned that this is a different type of Tesla, and you know what? This is something that I think most is misunderstood by a lot of people, that the actual Tesla vehicles have Nikola Tesla's invention, which is the AC motor, right? The alternating current motor, as the main component that basically powers the vehicle in addition to the battery, right? So it's the Tesla's invention lives on through the Tesla vehicles, and I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And so, and then I just saw that the subject was Tesla. The first subject on your talk today. So that which really sparked my curiosity, and I've listened to your talks before, Nate, and I find this really intriguing, and yeah, so there's just a lot of inventions that Tesla came up with that are currently being, I guess, used in some of the cars. And I think most people don't understand how much of a life-changing and resource saving technologies these are, with renewable energy and kind of making our world a better place to live. And I guess it's just it's something that I believe in. And it's just nice to see that through this company the products live on, kind of as Tesla is such a household name now. Most people will say, well, what is Tesla? And a lot of times they'll Google and they'll find Nikola Tesla and see that the actual logo of the Tesla vehicle and solar company right now is actually, if you look at it, the T is actually a cross section of the motor, of the AC current motor, right? So it has, if you line them up, look like a pizza pie. Actually, one of those cross sections is the actual motor. So that's a little tidbit for if anybody didn't know that. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marge, and no worries. Yes, it is definitely a far more structured format in the Nate Night Talks rooms as opposed to more of the free form and other things. And so, no worries at all. Happy to have you here. And I guess I wasn't even thinking about the Tesla car being a possible draw-in for this room. I just wrongfully made the assumption people know Nate Night Talks and know it's probably going to be a tie into UFOs. And so just another lesson in life for me to always be aware of the things I might be thinking and putting out might not be interpreted the same way. But thank you, Marge. Appreciate you being here and appreciate your insight on the Tesla vehicle and the origin of it. So thank you. Trevor, you are up, my man. Good to see you.
Oh, why, thank you there, Nathan. Sorry, I had to say it. Anyways, so one of the things too is, I mean, you mentioned Marge, you mentioned the Tesla cars, and the AC motor, the fact that we're actually able to talk right now via something that's not connected to a wire is also dedicated to Tesla. So, I mean, that's another thing that I like to bring up all the time because Nikola Tesla is, I mean, really the major inspiration behind most of the things that we do today. The inspiration behind the weapons in Star Wars, the communicators in Star Trek. Most science fiction is based upon inventions that Nikola Tesla has done, or at least his inspiration behind. So I always like to bring that up occasionally. Um, that's just one of the things I like to bring up. But one of the things that, of course, the reason why I wanted to come on there today is because again, people mention movies and UFOs and stuff, and so I'm sort of a cinephile, and one of the things that I love to talk about is, of course, anything being with UFOs in film because it's what inspires me. And one of the first films that come to mind when it comes to UFO phenomena is, of course, Fire in the Sky. If you have not seen it, it's based on the book by Travis Walton, based on a true story, his own experience about being abducted by aliens. The Fourth Kind was very similar in a lot of ways to it. So I can't remember who brought that one up, but freaking amazing. Um, and this goes into very gruesome detail about alien abduction. And so that one, of course, is one of my all-time favorites. Again, it scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. So that's one of those films that just absolutely just, I mean, really woke in my eyes. In fact, when Nate was first ever talked to me about the UFO phenomena and the grays and everything else of that nature, that's the first thing that I thought of was actually that film. And then the idea behind, I think a lot of people, is the genesis of most science fiction, which is 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the idea behind technology that the aliens create, which it leads to our destruction. Again, the idea of touching the monolith from the apes, which then gives the idea behind the destructive force that becomes a weapon that destroys, other people. Of course, the invention of how, which then of course destroys everything else. And of course, at the very end of the film, we realize that it was actually aliens themselves who were actually the genesis of man. So again, sort of the, I guess, overall theme, um, that I love to talk about this is there are so many different theories and different things that are out there, but one of the things that I think I'm most drawn to is the subtle connections that we find between connections of this technology that we are currently using right now that I'm speaking through, and to sort of the technologies that we've talked about several times on Nate Night Talks with with the type of propulsion systems, weaponry, and stuff of that nature that are out there, and how it really does connect to what we create. So again, sort of a sounding board here for a little bit is I do believe that, and I think a lot of people too believe the same thing, that it's a combination of the two. That yes, we have taken technology from these otherworldly beings, and that we have also adapted it ourselves for our own means. I mean, these sonic weapons of that nature are things that I know that Nate and I have talked about several times, and we've even put into a little TV show. And it's something that really means a lot to me as the more that I have studied from what Nate has talked about, and several people have talked about on this program. Data has always been, every time Data speaks, I listen so freaking intently because he's just, besides Nate, one of the most knowledgeable freaking people I've ever heard. And I learned a lot about it, and it really inspires me, not only as a creator myself, but also too inspires me as a person to really question the things that I think are real, or question the things that I think are false, and to really try to find the correlation between, because that's probably where the truth lies. And anyways, I'm Trevor, also known as TT, and I will leave the floor to the next person.
Thank you, Trevor. And I'm so glad. I mean, Fire in the Sky, yes, 100%. And for those of you who have not seen it, definitely see it. And then make sure that you watch the documentary. I'm totally blanking on what the documentary is that came out a couple years ago about it, which I think inevitably led Travis Walton to going on the Joe Rogan podcast and discussing his the actual story of what happened, and an amazing 3-hour interview. And after 30 years of reflection on what happened to him, he has somewhat changed his perspective on it being a negative experience. Where before it was obviously how it was depicted. He said that was Hollywood. He never described it that way at all. But that's Hollywood sensationalizing something to sell. And so, but he said it was nothing like that, but it was incredibly traumatic and scary. But he realized now, after 30 years of processing this, that he believes that they were actually there helping him. That he, when he got blasted back by the vehicle itself, by the UFO, that he suffered some massive amount of radiation, poisoning or something along those lines. And so they basically kept him for a week to more or less rid him of it and bring him back to life, and then dropped him a week later, butt naked, 3 towns over, or whatever the case it was. But that his whole perspective on that has changed from being something of a traumatic experience. to something where he thinks he just, we were too primitive. He didn't understand what was happening in the same way you take a dog to a vet. You're doing it for its own good, but it's terrified every time it goes there. And if it's been there once, rest assured the second time, it's even more scared to go there and thinks it's being punished. And so that same kind of, primitive understanding could be related to us with an advanced species like that, and a misinterpretation of things that are happening. Not to say that maybe some of them aren't with the best intent, but nonetheless, that is where his opinion has gone now. And 2001 Space Odyssey, I mean, just yes, on so many levels, and there's so much within that does tie into the UFO subject. I still think that opening sequence with the apes is probably one of the most prolific scenes in cinema really ever done. It's so simple, but yet so powerful, and really it almost feels like you're in a dream, like I want to say a bad dream, a kind of a bad dream, where it hits so close to home with some type of an evolutionary programming within us of seeing this leap in what a breakthrough and even something like a tool would do, and how it would change a society or a species kind of instantly, and watching that evolution take place back in would be almost considered, I mean, it looked like it was millions of years ago the way it was taking place, very much in dinosaur land type thing. And so so much was said while nothing was being said at all, and that scene is incredibly prolific. And it's obviously the phenomenal work he did on that movie is what led a lot of conspiracy theorists to believe that it was Stanley Kubrick who faked the moon landing, because so much of the technology and cinema that was employed in 2001, which was beyond groundbreaking at the time, looks very similar to tricks that were used within the moon landing. And I think that's also, I mean, it's another topic entirely, but I think people, when they hear fake moon landing, think that we never went. And I think it's quite the opposite, is that we went and there were things there that told us not to come back. And so we didn't, and we couldn't show the actual footage of what was there. And people who were tuned into other back channels that NASA had, they had the main media channel, which they communicated through, and they had a private back channel that anybody had any type of amateur, radio experience back then could have, tapped into and listened, and people did, and heard them, saying things, allegedly, talking about, they're being watched and there being craft and beings there on the moon. And it was a whole thing. And now we've had other, astronauts like Edgar Mitchell coming forward and telling his stories, and Buzz Aldrin, alluding to things as well. It's a very, very interesting story, the whole moon landing thing, in and of itself. But I think when people hear the idea of it being faked, they assume that we never went, that we just faked it purely as like a propaganda thing for the Russians, versus we went there and they couldn't show what they actually saw, type thing. And so that's a digression, but nonetheless, Kubrick, 2001 has so many ties into the UFO subject and all the things that, Trevor mentioned as well. Very amazing movie. And for those of you who might be too young, or not cinephile enough to want to watch a movie that old, you should, because it holds up, and it's an incredible piece of art. So thank you for that, Trevor, and for bringing those two ideas up. And with that, we are at the top of hour 2. So with that, quick room reset. Hello, everybody. This is Nate Night Talks, Tesla, movies, and UFO current events, and more, too. And started the room off with an opening monologue discussing this book, Occult Ether Physics, Tesla's Ideal Flying Machine and the Conspiracy to Conceal It, and diving into this explanation for the UFOs that we're seeing today, as predominantly the reason for most of them, versus it being what most UFO researchers believe, which is a mix of both our technology and theirs. And some people, like Greer, believes it's predominantly their technology in many cases that we're seeing. And research like this into what Tesla had actually achieved, and how it was suppressed and concealed, and him selling it to the Germans when the Americans wouldn't pay for it. And then obviously it led to the creation of the Nazi Bell and Werner von Braun, and all these wild stories that we all are very familiar with within ufology, get connected in a very interesting way, through this book and through the research that I believe the author is William Line has done, into it. And so started the room off with that as a food for thought when looking at this massive influx in UFOs that we're seeing, and the government on their narrative doubling down on the idea that it is not ours. And they say that emphatically, it's not ours. We know one thing for sure, it's not ours. Could be a foreign adversary, which they would never admit. That is the most anti-American thing to do, is ever admit another country has more superior weapon power than you, like in the means of like thousands of years in this case, or extraterrestrial life. So those two things are something that the government has never admitted before and never would. And yet one of the more plausible answers is that it's actually ours in a very clandestine, unacknowledged way. And that's the one explanation they're doubling down on and assuring us that it's not, because the implications of them having this, and this is the shadow government. Once again, this is not the elected government. This is the unacknowledged special access government, the breakaway one that, Eisenhower warned about in his farewell address, etc. That the implications of them having this technology and having it for the past 80 years plus, in allowing the planet to become what it is and the human race to become what it's become, would not go over well with the public, and those very few people who've held this control and held this secrecy at the cost of our incredible Earth and lives, would be held responsible for that. And rest assured, that is a power structure that has remained in place for a long time and does not plan on relinquishing it. But that as an explanation was something that is a very good one, and we're here to throw out ideas. We're here to have meaningful conversation about various explanations within this subject matter, whether it's extraterrestrial, UFO, consciousness, psychedelics, alternative histories, et cetera, et cetera. And so I thought this would be a great thing to dive into tonight for the opening monologue. And so we've kind of unpacked that for a period of time. And then also talking about some of the best movies that we've loved that have either referenced the UFO phenomena or have been kind of scientific in nature, very science fiction becomes science faction, that have either predicted things or that we think are going to predict things, or whatever the case might be. But unpacking some of those, and then some UFO videos and stuff that I kind of referenced early on, which we might get to in a little bit as far as the current events. And Stephen Greer posting, I think, 4 videos back to back on his YouTube channel in response to Danny Sheehan's public statement that he made, kind of denouncing Greer's depiction of him in the Cosmic Hoax and Expose documentary. So those are worth checking out as well. And it all kind of tied in with the Nikola Tesla things, because it's very much a part of Greer's narrative and research. He doesn't necessarily point to Nikola Tesla, but does very much stand by the idea that this is, in fact, the majority of our technology, and it's like a false flag operation that the government's doing and going to fake an alien invasion and yada, yada, yada. But Danny Sheehan, who was a part of his disclosure project, has been the legal counsel on it for, nearly 30 years, I believe, at the very least 20 plus years, made a public statement on Facebook last week, or over the weekend before, I believe, kind of denouncing a depiction or something he said taken out of context. And so that's very interesting, given how closely tied he is with Greer, and now he's representing people like Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, which adds to the whole, I don't want to call it drama, but the soap opera that is now the UFO disclosure. And so that was something we can also dive into if we feel so led as the conversation continues. As always, please do, if you enjoy the room, follow the club, click the bell, follow the nods, click the bell, and anybody who's up on stage speaking, if you vibed with them and liked what they said, follow them, follow people who are in the audience, build your community. We're all here for the same reason. At the very least, you're curious about that reason. So build your tribe, build people who are willing to have conversations about this and take this stuff incredibly seriously. This is the biggest benefit of Clubhouse, and it really behooves us to take full advantage of that and do what really was not possible before Clubhouse, as far as having dialogue and meaningful conversation on subjects like this that have been unjustly demonized, stigmatized, and relegated to the fringe, as the Nate Night Talks bio says. And lastly, definitely check out NateNightTalks.com. I have 5 declassified documents that are on there that Data has dug up. Data, for those of you who do not know, is one of the top 5 hackers in the world, has done private contract work for the intelligence agencies for concealing particular classified documents that have slipped through the cracks, because that stuff does happen in the compartmentalized stovepipe bureaucracy that is our government and intelligence agencies. And so things sometimes slip between the cracks. His job is to go in there and make sure that they are concealed and not found by anybody who has a basic understanding of whether hacking or just searching or whatever the case may be. But within that has come across thousands of declassified documents that we are going through, unpacking, are referenced a lot in these rooms. And so 5 of those I put on the website because I believe that they kind of span the topics of importance as far as how I see it anyway within this subject matter of the consciousness component being one of them, the UFO component being another one, the psychedelic component as far as things like MK Ultra, the energy suppression and advanced propulsion systems, and another one that I believe just had to do with UFOs, or maybe the astral projection, remote viewing stuff from like Project Stargate and Gateway Experience, etc. But those are on there, and if you're interested and you really want to support the community and the podcast and everything that I'm trying to do, please do join the Nate Night Talks community on Nate Night Talks website, and you'll get access to all of the documents as we release them, and people's personal experiences. It's like its own social media for people who are seeking the truth, and so your support is greatly needed to build this and get it to where it needs to go. So I appreciate those of you who've already joined and supported, and for anybody else who is interested, definitely would love to have you, and appreciate the support as this thing continues to hopefully turn into one of the biggest research databases there is, and a community of like-minded truth seekers. So that is it. With that, is it Kavan? Am I saying that right?
Hey Nate, yeah, that's right.
Welcome.
Excuse me.
No, good. We're going in order. We want to make sure that you spoke already. We want to make sure that Kavan has a chance. We can get to you afterwards, though. We can circle back if there's time.
Yes, thank you, Nate. And it's really amazing to hear all the information here in the panel. And I've always been a big, supporter, and been a huge inspiration from Tesla, growing up, and also inspired me to, learn science and, investigate. I grew up reading his autobiography, My Inventions, and that in itself gave me a lot of perspective in terms of investigation, exploration, scientific exploration as such, right? So that way he's the man to go to for me on so many levels, right? Nevertheless, I just wanted to speak about a few things, and one of the first things that I would like to probably present is on the aspect of Otis T. Carr, right? If you just Google Otis T. Carr, you will essentially find that he was some kind of a con man who uh, tried to build a spaceship kind of a device, which he in the 1950s had a propaganda that he could essentially fly people to the moon, right? But then if you dig up a lot of background about who Otis T. Carr was, he was essentially the guy who was selling peanuts to Tesla while Tesla was in his later stages, and he was spending most of his time in New York in the apartment, right? So that's when, while selling peanuts, they used to have like really good conversations. And then eventually Otis Tikar picked up on a lot of information that Tesla shared with him. And he eventually, like, without any scientific background per se in the beginning, but then, just from a pure inventor's perspective, goes on to establish this, this industry where he was looking at trying to build this device which is completely inspired out off of Tesla's inventions. And that's where the FBI and other intelligence agencies closely monitored him and his inventions. And when the time came for a public demonstration, a lot of very interesting synchronous events happened, and it never took off. The device never took off, and Otis Car never showed up, and there were a lot of interesting complications regarding the same, right? But then it's also very interesting to see and also hear related testimonies by this person called as Ralph Ring, right? So Ralph Ring was one of the mechanics who was involved in the industry of Otis Car, and he speaks of one of his experiences of getting in this the craft was essentially like a UFO kind of like from the outside it's like a disk, obviously, and it had a certain electrogravitics principle based off how it essentially worked, and then it had something to do with rotations, right? And there wasn't any exotic material used. As far as I know, it was essentially based purely off of electromagnetics, and that somehow influenced the gravitational field of the space time, and eventually had ways of it's not essentially of trying to traverse from a point A to point B kind of mechanism, but it was more of like uh, exploiting the nature of space time and eventually materializing and dematerializing. So that's essentially how the craft worked, right? And Ralph Ring speaks very elaborately on this on different occasions, and also in many interviews that you can find online. So I just want to like quickly speak of this entire invention, which is very interesting at the same time, going back to Tesla, and again a lot of conspiracy and other related misinformation around this aspect. And and again, if you really dig up all the the declassified documents from the FBI regarding Tesla and related things, you can find a lot of correlations and information regarding the same about how Tesla was involved in such kinds of devices, and all his plans as such as well, right? And I mean that's on the aircraft business. And coming to the free energy part, I actually don't remember the documentary, but
Kavan,
there
really
was,
quick before you go on, can you just spell the guy's name, the Odyssey car? How do you spell that?
yeah, it's Otis, Otis,
Oh,
T,
Otis. It's Otis T
yeah,
car. Okay,
Otis,
okay,
Otis T Carr car.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, and that is something really amazing for me, and I've been like really digging up all the files and looking at the information and things as such. And then again, if you look at the parallels between uh, the recent the 2018 I mean, I think data also mentioned about this. The 2018 patents the U.S. Navy has in the name of Salvador Payas, right? Where he speaks of, the patent is under U.S. Navy, which is also possibly a part of the disclosure program from the United States, essentially referring to a patent or technology which states that the U.S. government has a device which is essentially able to control the inertial mass of objects, right? The patent states that here's a man, Salvador Payas, who's a PhD from the Case Western Reserve University, who has a way of figuring out to reduce the inertial mass of objects, and it's the name of the patent is inertial mass uh, reduction devices, essentially, right? So again, it's nothing but a triangular shaped UFO, and there's lots of correlation between Tesla's work and and other related things. And yeah, so that's the aircraft part. And the next space is where he gets into the free energy aspect, right? And that's where things get really really interesting. And again, on the same lines, the US Navy in 2019, I guess, they have a US patent under the name of Salvador Payas, which is called the plasma fusion compression device. They also go ahead and publish this patent and the paper in IEEE, the prestigious engineering peer-reviewed research firm. And that is something really crazy and interesting at the same time. And again, adding to the recent disclosure programs, and even in the report they did mention threat so many times, and eventually they also try to conclude that it could be one of the US advanced program initiatives, or possibly crafts from China and Russia and things as such, right? So there's something very interesting happening down there, and I believe that's also one of the ways in which they're trying to push disclosure on so many levels in mainstream academia and other kinds of research forums. Nevertheless, when it comes to the free energy part, again, as you all know, Tesla himself had worked on really amazing ways and views of trying to use the Earth as a conductor, and the ionosphere of the Earth to be as a relay mechanism to actually source current. And there's a wonderful documentary which I remember seeing, and I think it was either Netflix or Amazon Prime, featuring a very famous, uh, uh, Tesla researcher and a physicist who tried to replicate, the entire free energy concept of Tesla, and they were successful in actually, uh, trying to create a similar ionosphere kind of space near a lake, and they just put a bulb on the just plug in a bulb on the ground out there near the lake, and it literally lights up, and there's a very detailed mechanism and process involved in it, which is explained in the documentary as well, which I currently I'm not getting to that source. But nevertheless, the other idea is, I think Tesla was one of the first person to bring in the aspect of the free energy to the world, and then looking at how mainstream academia has looked into the entire concept of free energy, and the conspiracy misinformation, and the cover up and mold and all these things is pretty amazing, essentially, because we know that these things are possible, essentially because in 1970s, there was a scientist who essentially popularized the idea of Casimir cavities, which is essentially when you bring two plates really, really close to each other, of the order of a few microns or a few nanometers, there is miraculously, like very interestingly, there is a development of you know polarities and charges. You essentially start generating currents, and then if you exploit the same behavior and phenomena, there are ways in which you can actually produce certain free energy kind of devices. And on similar lines, we have seen a lot of inventors being suppressed throughout history on so many levels. And I come from India, and I also know that there was a scientist from the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore who had a similar free energy kind of device, which is more of like a classical device, I would say, like a macroscopic device, which did produce more output current than the amount of input current which was given there. And speaking on the same lines, I'd also like to say that my professor, Professor Garrett Mordell, at the University of Colorado Boulder, currently is on one of the leading guys out there who is working on such kind of a phenomena. And I've seen these devices on a much more microscopic level producing currents, out of like thin air in a sense. And this has been debated on so many levels across different Nobel Prize winning scientists in the university and across the US. And, uh, I mean, most of the mainstream physicists, they do not agree with this, because this is directly in violation with second law of thermodynamics. But then if you just Google cavity induced current and Garrett Mordell, you can find his research paper, and it literally shows the phenomenon happening right there. And I've been there, I've witnessed it, and it's pretty amazing. Such things are happening at the moment, and still mainstream academia does not have the interest in looking at in theoretically understanding the phenomenon, right? Because this is something which is literally happening on the quantum level. This is essentially a way of bringing out zero point energy fluctuations to the macroscopic world, in a sense. And that's where the work all the way goes back, trickles down through so many scientists, mainstream academia, and independent inventors, and all the way to Tesla. And it's really amazing to observe this fact out there as well. And that's
Yes.
where it's very interesting when you look at all these the thread of invention and information, and how disclosure happening these days. And especially adding to the topic of the room, it's something really fascinating to observe. The the link, the thread, and the amazing amount of information which is out there, and still we don't have the necessary tools and the ways to look at it. But nevertheless, and
Yes, I
the
just
other
want to make
thing,
sure I'm respectful of everybody. Come on, we usually try to keep it to 2 minutes, and I know there's a lot of people who are on stage and been waiting, so
yeah, yeah,
just want to make
yeah.
sure that.
I'll just finish up saying that on the same lines, that I'd also like to say that uh, this beautiful quote by Tesla, which said, the day science begins to explore the non-physical phenomena, it would make more progress in one decade than all the previous century of its existence, right? So it essentially means that I think the source for such kinds of inventions and the way in which we look at reality is in the non-physical. And I think Tesla himself had a deep connection to the source, as he called it in his autobiography, and that's where he derived a lot of his inspiration and inventions on so many levels. And I think psi, or uh, an investment in psychic research or into the non-physical phenomenon is definitely the key on so many levels, and also attributes to the working of all these kinds of amazing crafts out there, right? So I just wanted to touch upon all these things, and I also like to appreciate his relevance to the modern times. As Marge was saying, the 1855 IEEE paper, which was published by Tesla, the three-phase induction motor is what we use today as well. In that sense, the kind of relevance that he has, in the times that he was to the modern times is something really fascinating for me, and I have huge respects for him. So that
Yes.
being said, I think
Thank you,
I'm
Kavan.
done. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yes. And, I quote the same thing all the time. It's one of my favorite Nikola Tesla quotes, and I think that's actually what Shiva originally reached out to me in reference to, because I typically throw that quote out all the time, which also then would play back into the idea of this ether within the occult ether physics, which he is referring to, and people like Einstein did corroborate and believe in, and it is truly the missing piece to understanding the universe and all these pieces that we somehow are eluding our modern day science. And it was spelled out very clearly by people like Tesla, over 100 years ago, that it's in the non-physical that we should be investigating, and we will make all the breakthroughs that are needed within that space. So thank you, Kavan. And once again, just as always, for those who are on stage, just rules of the stage as always, must be respectful at all times, or you will be booted. Do not derail the conversation, or you'll be booted. And please try and keep your sharing to 2 minutes or so, just out of respect for everybody that is on stage and been patiently waiting, because we do go in PTR order. But with that, because Scotty, one of my mods, came in a little bit later, and he wanted to wait to get his bearings because he's on the East Coast. I know he did have something to share, and then we'll pop to Heather right after. So, Scotty, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. Kind of going on what you just shared, Nate, and what Kavan shared at the end there was, Tesla embodied exactly what that quote is. He's one of the few people in modern times that is a perfect example of what you can do and accomplish when you tap into this source. I believe Einstein was there, but I believe that it's very apparent to me that Tesla was on a whole nother level than Einstein. Um, if you go back and really research Tesla and all the inventions and the things that he had done, it's really incredible. I don't know if you've ever read that story where he built this machine that was essentially created like an earthquake in New York. And then he had to smash it with a hammer because the police came in and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because the building was shaking. Um, and then the MythBusters guys, they uh, they tested that theory and on a bridge, and it was essentially this device matching the resonance of whatever substrate or material something was built out of. And they put this little device on a bridge, which is essentially this hammer that's just kind of tapping things. And then they were measuring the resonance of the bridge. And they're like, "Oh, okay, nothing's happening here, nothing's happening here." And then they're like, "Okay, yeah, something's happening here." So they stopped what they were doing because they got spooked that they might collapse the bridge. Whether or not that would have happened is one thing, but the fact that these guys on MythBusters, who are pretty conservative and tend to be very careful, stopped what they were doing, really believing that something could have occurred, was pretty really cool to me. And I don't even think that their device was remotely close to what Tesla had built, but Tesla was on a whole nother level. Um, he's just a beacon of fascination for me. And everybody thinks Marconi invented the radio, but it was actually Tesla. Um, but I do want to share that I posted something on the Nate Night Talks website or the community page under the excuse me, under the NNT show notes. So I've talked about my father many times here, about how he worked for the Grumman Corporation, and my father passed about 8 days ago. So I'm here. I had to come to Florida to help my mom and my brother, kind of to support them and for the services. Started going through his things, and I found something which blew my mind. I shared it. I took a video of it, um, and posted it on the excuse me, on the NNT community website. So if you're a member, go there and check out the video. I did post it on my, it's not a YouTube channel, but it is a link through YouTube. So this is another reason why I think, what Nate is doing here, um, and trying to do along with data and providing some cool information that you really can't get anywhere else. I've been researching on the internet UFO material since the internet was a thing, when I had dial-up, and it's hard to get information, and some of the things that data has dug up to provide us, um, man, I tell you, I've been at this for so long, like you can't get that material. So I know this sounds like a sales pitch for Nate's thing, but like I've been at this a long time, and what he's doing, it's pretty unique. There's all kinds of UFO websites out there, which are very valuable, but this is a little different. So, which is why I'm here supporting the club. I'm supporting Nate, kind of believing in, excuse me, I don't have COVID. Um, Supporting what they're doing. So, and since I've spoken about my father, I figured I will post the video here first for people to see, to validate the things that I've said. Also, the thing that I showed here validated a lot of the things he's told me over the years about the technologies that some of the things that he's worked with that are in use today, and some things that he told me about which we don't see yet. But there was this one thing that really just blew my mind. So I posted it tonight. So if you're a member, go check it out. If you're not a member, uh, it's throw down and support a cause, and then you could always bail if you think it's bullshit. But at least do yourself a favor and check out the community. And let's see. I do want to say the last thing about movies is I will second what Dylan said about The Fourth Kind. That movie, like, there was a point in that movie where, like, I literally jumped back. It, like, scared the shit out of me. Um, and it was based on true events. However, there are some, Hollywood always has to throw in, excuse me, throw in some sensationalism, and the part at the end with the wheelchair and all that stuff, um, that was fiction. So, but that movie was really cool and the way they did it. But I also think Europa is a really cool movie. If you have not seen Europa, I would highly recommend checking it
Yes.
out. It's yeah, one of my favorite movies. Like the ending, just like it was something I didn't expect, and then when you watch it, you'll understand. And then after that, what movie was that? With was it Arrival with the
Yeah.
octopus? Was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Arrival.
yeah. So watch Europa, and then if you've seen Arrival, you'll see how these two things are linked, and you know how there is predictive programming within Hollywood. So I think there's something to that. So that's all I want to share tonight. Thanks, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Scotty. Appreciate the love, man. I really do. That's not even a paid advertisement. I wasn't expecting that. So thank you. And I'll watch the video. If I play it through here, it's going to take over the speaker. So I already did that once when you were speaking a couple weeks ago. So I'll wait until until later to actually watch it. But nobody ever, for whatever reason, people I talk to, no one's ever seen the movie Europa. And I'm so happy you brought that up because it does have an incredible twist at the end. It's actually an MTV movie, believe it or not, which I think, in my opinion, is probably then one of the best that they've ever made back when they were, I guess they're still producing movies, but before they turned into more of like a CW type network. It was a pretty pioneering concept and fairly cutting edge at that time as far as reality TV show style filming goes, like a documentary, mockumentary type thing. But yeah, definitely, if you guys haven't seen that, I second that. Really cool movie. So thank you, Scotty. I appreciate you, man. And get some water. Heather, you were up. Appreciate your patience. Heather, are you there? Heather going once, going twice. Krista, thank you for your patience. You were up.
Hi guys. Gosh, I don't have as much as I thought to say, but I did come up because we were talking numbers, and I was, really. I'm a Vedic astrologer, and in the realms of looking at the United States right now, United States is in what's called a Rahu period. And it's interestingly enough an 18-year period. It started in 212 when we thought the world was going to start to see a lot of problems, and it will continue to 2030. And basically, what Rahu is it's Rahu is the north node of the moon. Okay, so you have the moon and you have nodals, and Rahu is the head of the snake, and what is the other side is Ketu, is the tail of the snake. And the reason I say this is the head of the snake is very willful, very consumptuous, just doesn't really, has no sense of its body at all. It only wants to do what it wants to do. And so I've been reminded, with the 18-year period being 666, um, 3 6s make 18, that we're in this period with really difficult leaders, like really, if you look the world wide, all the leaders are poor, all the leaders are nefarious, and not really supporting the people. So I got to be thinking about that. And what's really nice is after this period we go into a Jupiterian period for 14 years, and Jupiter rules the 12th house and the ninth house. So again, we're in the numbers of the 3 6 9 12. So that's promising, but unfortunately, we have these years to go through with this difficult time, and these very willful leaders who don't really have the earth and the body in mind. The other thing I, have playing and been toying with and going down the rabbit hole with, and I'm not here to say that I'm conclusive on anything, but it got me looking at some ideologies around. One of the things I look at is dimensional, third dimensional, fourth, fifth dimensional. And I work with that in meditation. And from that, what I realize is you've got this like pyramid in the third dimension, which is what we see on the dollar bill, which we see with the masonry, and we see with, the third eye or the eye. And, they're going to this one, they're at the top, and all of us are at the base at the bottom. And yet we're trying to move towards this fourth dimensional, which is more square, and so as above, so below. So here we are, we're in a different place. And the reason I'm speaking to this is that I've been researching, and looking into the North Pole, if you will. And I used to work for a company who used to take people on expeditions to the North Pole. But they were very interesting young men who would, it's 80,000 to 150,000 to go on one of these trips. And they would say that there was much mystery up in the North Pole, that you couldn't fly beyond a certain zone, and that all of a sudden, and they were they had heard stories about what was beyond the North Pole, what was there. And I often think about when they say ET as extraterrestrial, could it be extra territory? Like, could they be coming from another territory north? And one of the psychic things that I got early on when I moved to California was always move north, always move north. And I didn't know where that was coming from until I started to do this recent research recently. Now I know I'm all over the map, but it's kind of what I'm getting at is might might they be here? Might they be on extra territory on this planet? Might they be quite advanced? And might they not be meeting us not only physically in the realms of flying in so that we can see them, but meeting with us interdimensionally? So it's through the psychedelics that they meet and come into us interdimensionally and share information with us, which brings me to Tesla. Tesla, I feel that like maybe his information wasn't his own. I feel like maybe he was getting interdimensional information all the time. And I even think maybe some of the information that he was trying to bring forward was already available to us. It just seemed to be at the time he was the one bringing it through, and that it might have existed in earlier times. And so anyhow, I don't know where I'm going with all this, but these are all the things that are sort of coming to me when we talk about Tesla and this understanding that might these UFOs and what have you be coming physically in three-dimensional, but also interdimensional. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Krista. Yes, you covered a lot of bases in that. Oh, you want to say something, Scotty?
I have a question, Krista.
Sure.
It's not about Tesla, but it is about the. Maybe I'll just DM you, or I tried to, but I didn't see you on Instagram. So if you're on IG, ping me. But I have a question about the year 2030. So because it's relevant about some things that I've spoken about here in Clubhouse, not in this room, but other rooms regarding global currencies and power structure shifts. So if you can reach out to me, thanks.
I will. I'll reach out to you. And Scotty, again, my condolences to you and your family. And I've heard you speak about your dad. So when you said that tonight, it just, I'm sorry, my heart just opened on that. And many blessings to you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate you and all the people that have DM'd me and with support. You know, I have always had a good relationship with death, partly thanks to my father, and I think that while I'll miss him for sure, I just know that he's not gone. So that's the disposition that I have with coming from a place of knowing, not believing. So I do appreciate the sentiment, and I just really do appreciate you. So thank you so
Well,
much.
and maybe he'll meet up with you interdimensionally. So he'll be,
Absolutely. It's already
yes,
happening.
I love it. That's awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Scotty. And I mean, just as a really quick, a lot was said, and too many rabbit holes, I think,
Sorry.
or dive into. But just the idea and the notion of their, extraterrestrials not being extra, but rather just being terrestrials on this planet is definitely a widely believed idea within UFO research, ufology, whatever you would like to call it, and it does come down to, once again, the two. I mean, it comes down to a number of, actually. I mean, there's a lot of different rabbit holes to go in with the particular beings that have been on this planet well before us, and we could talk about the Greys once again, and this idea, as Data was putting forth, which a lot of people do subscribe to, and I believe is a very logical explanation of it being us essentially from the future, or perhaps a very past version of us from millions of years ago on this planet that essentially developed the technology to be able to avoid the cataclysms when they hit the reset button on this planet. And according to the foremost geologist in the world, Randall Carlson, we've had 13, I believe, of those extinction level events that have happened in the last 125,000 years alone. So a number of reset buttons have been hit on this planet. And that takes us back to, even the idea of dinosaurs, which is where, this notion of the reptilian race came from, with, 65 million years of evolution. If they all didn't die off, and they've been evolving underground, which is where a lot of people believe they are to be. 65 million years of evolution, it doesn't matter if you look like a lizard, you're going to be a very evolved creature. And I mean, obviously with reptilians, you get to the whole Draco reptilian idea, and that they're essentially colonizing species that kind of like a Genghis Khan of the galaxies, and go and basically take over planets, and that's allegedly been their MO. But that they're here, they've been here before us, and they've been here underground, and same with Nordics and a number of other we would say alien races that also call this place home, and perhaps were home here before us. And you could even go back to things like Lemurians and Atlanteans and species or beings like that are human-esque in a way, but also kind of not. And so there's a lot of different places to go with that, and Antarctica has always been a big hotspot for that type of debate and that type of inquiry, and something I've always been fascinated with as the idea of Hollow Earth. And so, but definitely, that's something we could literally unpack in an entire room. But just to
Yeah, I'd love that room. I'd love to get someone to come in and speak about it who's got some knowledge. That would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely doable, and will definitely be something that will take place. Really quick, Heather, are you back? I want to give you one more chance. Heather, going once, going twice. All right.
Sure. Can you see me?
Oh, yep, we can hear you now.
Okay.
She's alive.
She's alive, and she's coming to get you and make soup with you for dinner for her millions of children.
You're up, Heather.
I was going to go to bed early tonight because I go to bed at 6 in the morning. And okay, what I was going to say was one of the best movies I ever saw, and I think it's my favorite movie. It was Arrival, and it got Best Picture of the Year. And these pods landed outside of cities, and they kept trying to write stuff on the outside of the window. So they called in a linguist who not only did linguists with spoken language, but she was able to interpret certain signs that people made, because she was working with children who were verbally not working. And she finally broke through with this language, and she could understand them, and everybody was saying, oh, this is a bunch of hooey. Why are we wasting money on this? And then she whispered into the ear of one of the people who were sponsoring this and ready to get out, and she whispered in his ears, they told me that your wife is very sick and you must go home immediately and take care of her. And what it worked out is they were from another place, and they communicated in like pictograms, and it was really hard, but she just did it step by step, trying to get what they were saying, and she could do it. And then when they went away and she went back to her home, her daughter came running to her, who had died before she took on this job. So that was their way of giving her a gift for helping them to explain their way of understanding things. So they were able to pass back and forth before time and take care of things that had happened before they came, and to take care of things after they were going to come. And it was just a very touching story. And I also like them, and I can't remember the name of it, but we could learn a lot from it, is when the two astronauts crashed on the planet, and one was a lizard man and one was an American soldier, and how they had to learn to get along.
Enemy mine.
And they weren't getting along very well, but they finally started counting each other. And I think the most beautiful thing was these creatures from the alien side to us They had children just when children came. And he died. The guy got off the planet, but he made sure to go back to the planet where the other guy came from. And he spoke the long history, which he had memorized from his friend that went back hundreds of years. And so, but he was so and so's father, and they discovered so and so and so and so. And it just shows you that any two people could probably get along if they have to survive. I always like that thought.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you, Heather.
I,
I can see you're eating a meal, and we can all definitely hear it coming
oh,
through.
I have chewing.
Yeah.
I'm chewing gum,
Oh, okay.
but anyway, I shouldn't be doing that. But I have been reading the things that Scotty posted. They're really fascinating, and I'm enjoying myself tremendously. And I love not being able to watch TV or news or anything, so I really don't know what's going on in the world. So I'm just going out to the lake and sitting on the seashore under the big trees.
Well, appreciate you, Heather. Thank you for the 2 movie recs, and continue to enjoy the retreat in solitude. Definitely good for everybody. DJ Troomp, you are up, my man. Appreciate your patience.
Hey man, what's going on, y'all?
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I've just wanted to tap in, man. I've been a lightweight geek, man. You know, producing, doing music most of my life, but always been fascinated with a lot of all the alien UFO stuff. I mean, I ran across a lot of VHS tapes back in like 81, 82. Since then, you know, everybody know that's when for the old school people, that's when the VCRs first came out, top load, you know. Um, but I always had this thing where I always I wanted to talk to a geologist about this, to where I feel that the Earth is like a big human being, like a big being. You know what I mean? And we're small organisms living on it the same way that organisms live on our body. To where, let's say, you know how I forgot what they call those little mites or whatever. They say no matter how many showers you take, these beings are just a part of us. They live on our skin 24/7. Y'all, you know what I'm saying, right? Excuse me. Can y'all relate?
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay. So let's say those beings that's been living on the exterior of our body. That's a whole generation. That's a whole colony. They know each other. They communicate. They do whatever. That's a part of our makeup. Like I say, no matter how many hot showers we take, they can't go nowhere. So just so happened one of those organisms that live on the exterior was to make it within the deeper part of our body. So there's more organisms that's living, that's working inside of our body as well on the interior. They will look at each other as aliens the same way that we would look at what's going on at the beings that's going on up under the surface of the earth. Like it's different layers of the skin. I feel it's different layers of the earth. As you go down, yes, like what's his man, Phil Snyder, when he was talking about in Dulce, New Mexico, when they was digging those underground bunkers, how they ran across some alien graves. And I think there's so many different levels when you get into the surface of the earth that I don't know. I feel like they just teach us about the crust, the mantle, and the core, just to keep us from really thinking deeper of what's really going on. You know what I mean? So I just feel that it's a whole nother type of, like you say, it's a whole nother world going on up under us. They've been here, and a lot of times when we do see UFOs, I think they're just passing through. Like a lot of sailors see them come out the ocean, take off at a blink of an eye. Yeah, that's they just coming. They're going to wherever they're going, but they just. I think when we see them, they're just passing through while they're going on to their next mission, or we may see them when they're coming back. Did that make sense?
Yeah, man. No, completely.
Yeah.
And love the perspective too, because I mean, I think most of us probably subscribe to the idea of Mother Earth, of Gaia. This is a conscious, entity. It's a consciousness itself. The planet is very much alive, and very much the mother of all of us, the thing
Yeah,
that gives us life in the first place. But it doesn't just give us life; it gives many things life, and many things life that once again we haven't even. We're talking about space, and we haven't even explored the depths of our own oceans yet.
exactly.
There's
And
so
the
much.
thing about it, and I look at it as when you look at the ocean, just think, okay, the first layer, when you even look at the ocean, you got whales, sharks. Then as you get deeper, you start seeing jellyfish, and you go deeper, you start seeing what electric eels. That's a level of technology right there. You got an eel that's in here that carries straight electricity. Then you go deeper, you start seeing fish that look like neon lights. So that just tell you that technology definitely changed as you go into the ocean. But so many people, like I say, you got submarines. But I think if a lot of us was to really just focus on trying to explore the the not the aquatic world, because I mean, everybody got their top secrets about what goes on. Submarine. They can't tell you anything about what happens. A lot of Navy guys. But I think if we explore the land part of this as deep as we go into the ocean, oh yeah, we definitely gonna see some other things that we may scare the shit out of us, or may just come home telling everybody about it in excitement. I think I'd be more excited than anything. It may scare me at first, but the fact that my mind is already built for it, I think if I was to go deep into some caves and see some other beings, I would just be amazed, and I would just really feel like, okay, it is true, and I go on about my business. But to just be around folks who just don't believe it at all, who just knock the whole thing. What's the guy, Neil deGrasse? I can't think of his name. Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever. He always talking down on the whole UFO alien thing. And I think that's what his job is, to really just try to debunk most of the facts. You know what I mean? Every time someone asks him, I've seen Joe Rogan ask him about it a few times, and he always just knock it down like it don't exist, like it's just so unbelievable. That's why it's just to a certain degree, I don't even listen to him too tough.
Well, you raise very good points, my man,
Yeah.
and it's a very interesting thing that kind of goes along with what DJ Trump is saying. Is we discovered, I'm sure some of you probably saw it, some news article a few months ago about a cave that was sealed off for like whatever it was, a couple million years or something, but had like water in there, and we basically found our way in, and found all of these new species, like these crazy hybrid caterpillary fish things. I'm blanking on what they were, but you can Google it.
Wow.
And these things had been evolving in sheer darkness, very low oxygen, and essentially what would be considered these places that we've yet to even explore, or I think we have explored, but has not been shared with the rest of the world. But species that we just discovered in one little area, one little ecosystem that was untouched, that evolved itself for millions of years on our own planet in a little pocket of a cave. And here were insane looking creatures that we had never seen before, that were, a branch of evolution from a couple other species we knew that found a way to survive and morph over time to adapt to their surroundings, which makes sense once again for the idea of if this reptilian race in particular, if we're going to go with that example from earlier, has been
Wow. You have any
underground.
have any photos of that, Nate? Any photos of those?
I'd have to re-Google it. It was a news story.
Wow. That's interesting.
When I shoot me a DM, and I'll research it, and then I'll share a link with you, and you can see the pictures on it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Just so I don't forget, but definitely do it. I'll pull it up. It was in Vice, I believe, a few months ago. Was a pretty substantial discovery, and I may be botching some of the details, but all I know is millions of years and darkness, and these new species that we've never seen came out of it, and some crazy ass looking species on top of it. And so, but there's so much we don't know, or we don't. There are people,
Right.
I believe, who do, but about our own planet, in particular, why areas are off limits for exploration, which makes no sense at all. In particular, Antarctica, or places like the Bermuda Triangle, which is another very fascinating topic in of itself to dive into. But
Oh yeah.
we're talking about other places and in the galaxy, the solar system, or the universe, and yet there's so much unknown on our own planet, and the general population just accepts the narrative that they're told, and thinks that we've somehow discovered it all already, despite knowing that we actually haven't, including what's under miles of ice, in Antarctica, which I believe to be, the ancient civilization that's under there that will be discovered, whether or not still active or not. There's so much we don't know. And those maps that, turned up hundreds of years ago showing a perfect depiction of Antarctica without any ice, what the actual landmass looked like, lakes, everything perfectly detailed and drawn.
Wow.
And we only can back it up now because we have essentially things like LiDAR and ability to, with satellites, look through the ice and get like topographic, scans of what the ground looks like underneath it. But yet maps from, 400, 500 years ago, whatever it was, were discovered, and who knows how far back they go, but of complete accurate sketches of the whole Antarctica without ice. And so a lot of very interesting things on our planet alone that are worthy of exploration and inquiry from us all. So I appreciate you, DJ Trumpy, way to bring up
Oh,
some
okay.
solid topics, man.
Okay, appreciate you for bringing me up, man.
And shoot me
I
the
appreciate
DM.
that.
Don't let me forget, and I'll send you the pictures and article when I find them.
Awesome. All right, for sure.
Appreciate you,
Yeah.
man.
All right, back at you.
Hugo, you are up. Appreciate your patience.
Hey, what's up, people? How's it going? So I just want to start out to appreciate the content that you post on YouTube. It's actually great, for the start. So I was just hearing DJ too, and it's actually true. I mean, we don't know what's up. I mean, and like Nate said, we don't know what's out there, but probably other people know. Um, and I've been waiting actually 1 week to actually question data if it's possible to use AI to infiltrate some kind of national security or CIA about this kind of data. I do believe that it's possible because AI breaks any you know biological system made by us. So that means they are more advanced and we can use it um, to a very good, at least in my point of view, because we must get this data. We must know the truth, and I don't believe that lying to all humanity itself is logical. It's more emotional and more stupid than logical. So I do believe the government must hand it over to humanity, and probably I do believe that establishing a new organization. I know it is a different topic, but I'm just going to ask Data if it's possible to use AI or just any type of secure thing to infiltrate to a US or any other government and know the truth, because I do believe that myself and other people are just tired to not knowing the truth all these years, 100 years, probably even more than 100 years, that these organizations are doing these stupid, non-logical, bad things to the whole humanity. And I like when Stephen Greer said that there is so this technology that it's out there. I mean, it could really change the world itself. I mean, anti-gravity. We could already go to other civilizations and just meet with them and just find the answers to the universe. It will be amazing. But guess what? The governments are not letting us do that. So I must lean forward and just go full pedal into metal, really, and just get the truth out, because that's what I think it is. That's what I should do, and we should do it ASAP, with pace, of course, and with mind. But we should do it fast because we don't know the future. We don't know what is their plans. So yeah, that's really what I think it should be done, and maybe even with AI, just get the truth out. So what do you think, Data?
Yeah. as far as infiltrating the government, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. That's what I think. But sure, let's hypothetically, there could be some. Well, first, I don't believe in AI. I don't believe AI can exist in this dimension, and I do talk about that in my podcast. It's machine learning. That's all we have. There is not one single person on this earth that can write the algorithm to express pain. There's not one single person in the earth. So that's my take on AI. But in terms of machine learning, yes, to infiltrate the government in that sense, if someone were to do that, there's a couple things like for the military that it's called a Nipper network, and anyone that is in the military actually knows this. Anyone with any security clearance at all. And that's where these documents are held in this intranet. Used to be different, and it didn't used to always live internally, but it's tough, right? It's not impossible, but it's tough to infiltrate that. There would have to be quite a bit of intelligence already known about the systems in order to do that. I think what you're probably looking for is there a way to maybe intercept maybe any sort of transmissions, and even that is tough. It's not impossible. I know that you want the answers, and so many other people, but there are there's resources that the government puts in place specifically to to stop these kinds of things. Again, it's not impossible, but I would recommend against it. No matter what country you live in, U.S. and overseas, it doesn't matter. Doing that's just going to a world of pain for whoever does it. I believe in time there will be more available, but I think that tapping into your higher self and seeing what you're truly seeking is the answer that I would give to you. Is what are you really looking for? And sometimes we believe that the answers are in these classified documents, or sometimes they're in the cosmic top secret documents. But I found myself that as reading through these kinds of documents, top secrets and things like that, I mean, I didn't find what I was looking for. The answers that I was looking for was actually in documents that were not classified at all. They have never had a classification ever. And I found my truth that way. So I think that is one thing to maybe kind of meditate on and feel that, what are you seeking specifically? And then maybe from there you can help others find their truth as well. I'm Data.
Well said indeed, Data. And that, Hugo, I'm going to echo that because that is the underpinning for everything. And Nate Night Talks has to do ultimately with consciousness. And the last place we should ever be going to find the truth or get to the bottom of things is the government. That's the last truthful institution that there is outside of the media. But yet the majority of the population relies on them and doesn't believe things are true, real, or possible until the government or the media or pundits who are controlled by them or big corporations tell them that something is real, true, or possible. But in reality, truth lies within. We are all connected. We're all infinite beings connected to our higher selves and the infinite intelligence that is the universe. All things are connected. Therefore, information is the exact same. It's just a matter of tapping into that. And that's not like some woo-woo stuff. That's just the nature of the universe and information and frequency and resonance and everything that makes up this existence at its core. And so we can do it. It just takes a lot of work. And it ultimately will be within, and we have access to that information. And while it may not be as cut and dry or laid out on a silver platter that we might be hoping for in some type of Hollywood movie big reveal of the truth that we would want, it can still be accessed, and the knowing can still be there. Because we don't need to rely on these institutions that don't have our best will in mind at all. Matter of fact, that try to keep us enslaved and control our thoughts in many ways. And so that's the last place we should be going to try and find truth to begin with. But for certain people, the validation of the government and the mass media is very important. And so because of that, I talk about it a lot in this room. Because of that, Data and I are trying to get this information out as far as the documentation of these things goes, because that will be compelling enough for a lot of people, at the very least, to shift that perspective in consciousness and awareness and begin to understand that these things are very real. The true story is far more grand than anybody could even begin to realize. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg with it all. But if that's what it takes to get that initial paradigm shift, to get that reality to set in, then that's what we're going to do, because we have to communicate in a way that the rest of the population is communicating. And that usually goes through modalities like that. But that's not ultimately where the truth is going to lie. It's just going to give people, I think, the false validation that they're looking for from the institutions that they wrongfully trust. But nonetheless, it is validating, to see these things. It does let you know that, you're not crazy, because after a while of really doing heavy research into this stuff and going down all these rabbit holes and realizing that the more you know, the less you know, sometimes it's good to have that validation, to know that you're, where everybody else is kind of brainwashed to think a certain way, and you're out here on the fringe, going against that and really questioning things, that it can be isolating and very lonely. And so sometimes that validation in that form is encouraging, and it's good, and it lets you know that you're on the right track. And so for that reason, I think it holds weight and has value, but not much more outside of that, in my opinion anyway. But appreciate you, Hugo. Divine Being, you're up. Appreciate your patience. Oh, and really quick, DJ Toomp, if you DM me, I'll send it to you. I found it. I'll send you like a BBC article, I think. The bizarre beasts living in a Romanian poison cave, cut off for millions of years, its air with thick, harmful gases, yet an array of strange animals evolved. And this just goes to prove once again that life outside of our planet in completely different environments can evolve.
Yeah, I must read up on that. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's right up my alley, dude, for sure.
Yeah, I'll be happy to
Okay.
send it to you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Divine Being.
Welcome, Divine.
And Nate, I just want to ask, since you said, so what do you recommend me to do? Because right now I'm on kind of confused place, because like you said, the government is the last thing. The thing is, I mean, so many people talk about the government that I just think the government really has the information, as well other people also think. So what do you think that people should do instead of just going to government? Because I do believe they have, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm just in a confused place right now. So what do you think I should do?
Well, I definitely empathize and sympathize with that confusion. And I know everybody does who's researched this or any type of subject matter that has been relegated to the fringe and unfairly and unjustly stigmatized. The government, once again, we must separate the description of the elected government versus this unacknowledged cabal type of government that exists, the ones that Eisenhower warned about, this breakaway one that doesn't answer to the president or really anybody else outside of a few career intelligence directors or people at the very, very, very top. It's very compartmentalized, and very few people hold this information, and they don't answer to the will of the people or even to the elected government. Yet they siphon off illegally, trillions of dollars of our taxpayer money to projects that we have no, knowledge of, and likely never will. But that's the group that's doing this. It's not, Joe Blow elected official. They're just con artists. Not all of them, but by and large, in my opinion. But you have to just take in information. You have to be discerning with everything that you are investigating, and that will take you down a lot of different rabbit holes of information. And the hard part about this subject, and why I think a lot of people get discouraged early on from doing it, is because it is so riddled with disinformation lies, counterintelligence, deliberately so, to confuse and deceive people who are trying to get to the truth. But if you do it for any length of time, and you kind of don't lose hope, and you do so in as, I guess, academic or scientific of an approach, meaning you really look at, similarities, you look at reoccurrences, things that are corroborated over time, different accounts of similar things spanning cultures and timelines, and the evidence that would be there in any other type of a research-based, investigation into something. There is a lot of information that starts to rise to the top and make more sense. But yeah, it takes a lot of work. And that's why I always say in this room, like, I've done 12 years of research. I've seen these things firsthand, and I've traversed other realms of consciousness and exploration to better understand the unseen components of this, but I still ultimately don't know anything. I have ideas, I have feelings, I have certain knowings about things, but being able to prove them is going to be near impossible. But I can definitely, hang my head, if you will, or that's probably the wrong expression. I can definitely rest on certain things that seem to be true, that have risen to the top over and over, and that have been corroborated through certain declassified documents, expert and witness testimony, deathbed confessions, and then countless firsthand experiences from people all around the world. This isn't a subject that people are incentivized to lie about. If you even said you had a UFO encounter, it would cost you your job, potentially your life, if you knew actually too much, back in the day. Now they just destroy your reputation and your livelihood. But it would be career suicide. It would be social suicide. You become a pariah. Like, there is no monetary gain. Nobody would be watching. It's not like the CNN and Fox would come running to you with, cameras and microphones. Oh, tell us about your UFO encounter. It's not how it would work. And so people who've had genuine experiences, who've repeated them the same way, that same story over and over and over again, for the most part are probably telling the truth. Obviously, there's going to be some outliers. Obviously, there's going to be people that maybe aren't, the most educated observer of what they're seeing, and maybe things are, misunderstood, and that does happen, which is why I think by and large, 80 to 90% of what you see out there can be disregarded as either, a misidentification or a hoax or disinformation or whatever it may be, which goes back to why this is so frustrating, why this is so difficult, and why the mission I feel I have on here to continue to do this is to offer an encouragement with it, but also offer a more grounded, realistic, empowering perspective that we hold the power within us to find this information, to ultimately try and get to the truth. We don't have to rely on these institutions. It does help to validate certain things for us, but ultimately, if we want to know the truth, we'll find the truth, or at least enough that we can better understand reality, what real reality actually is. And even if you get to that point, I feel like you've won in many ways. If you can get to a point that you have a level of knowing versus believing that certain things are real and true, then you're already kind of ahead of most people in this. But it's still an isolating, lonely journey. This isn't a mainstream topic, though now it's being talked about on the news, but still people don't care by and large, which kind of really just tells a big story there about humanity, and I think perhaps about the apathy and fatigue that everybody is faced with the distrust for the government and the media institutions, and just not knowing what to believe or believe in anything anymore because they're just so used to being lied to, that they're just kind of fed up, or just have too much going on with COVID and losing livelihood and everything else that's going on, that it's one more thing, and they don't really care because it's not going to pay their bills. And so there's no real cut and dry path forward other than do the research, read books. Books are some of the best material that's out there. Don't be watching necessarily, YouTube videos or, blogs. Anybody can say anything and write anything. But if you're going to get published, it takes a little bit more effort, and you must have some type of a conviction to be putting that much effort into writing something all the way out and having it published and selling it. And so I think there's a little more weight can be given to those type of things. And then, just you take it all in and you corroborate information, check the source, always check the source for motive, for agenda, for intent. And then, meditate on it. Listen to your higher self. Really get in touch with your consciousness and altered states of consciousness, whether that's through meditation, hypertropic breathing, psychedelics, if they call to you, whatever it is, and unlock the things unseen to get a better perspective on other things that are unseen or untold, rather. The greatest story ever denied, and that's really, the only avenue we have. And if enough of us, I think, do that and do it as a collective and share this information with, love and openness and compassion and empathy with people who may share different understandings, or their research may show different things, whatever it is, ultimately nobody knows anything. And so for us to bicker over these things and fight, it's completely destructive and counterproductive to getting to the truth in any means. And so if we can do this as a mass consciousness, as a collective, and get enough people who are, genuinely trying to find the truth and doing so in a way that they're sharing it with the people around them, with a very compelling, narrative that they're putting forth, based on fact and evidence and logic, something that at least sounds rational versus, the way the subject is normally framed, but, speak a language that people understand a bit more. And you do that, and the declassified documents, stuff like that help, because then you can well, check this out. Do you want to know how serious the government's been taking this for the past 80 years? Look at this. You want to know how serious they've been taking astral projection, remote viewing, mind control, advanced propulsion? This isn't new. And then suddenly it's usually enough to plant a seed and shift a paradigm that for those who are ready to hear, and they're along that, consciousness evolution or of their journey. It's usually enough to at least shift something. Whether or not they go full board or even care, it's still a choice. We're all individual consciousness here. Yes, we're all one, but we're all here learning our own things and experiencing our own things. And not everybody is going to be on that same path as you or I. And we must have compassion and love for that, and understand that this is our journey, and it's not going to be everybody's. And accepting those things, I think, gives you a little bit of peace. And then you don't stress, because ultimately they only have power if you give it to them. You are responsible solely for your own consciousness, your reality. You're creating it every day. And so don't give up that power, and stay curious, and do so with, once again, discernment and intellectual honesty. And I think you'll get inevitably the answers you seek, or at least solace enough, I guess. But hopefully that helped you go.
But I just want to share that I'm going just to search the sources and everything. And since I'm not really a meditation man, I will just invest on the SETI and these companies, and even make a company to contact all the ETs, because on my point of view, only logic and technology can make big difference. Because if other civilizations are so advanced, they should be able to get my technology or any other technology on my team's technology. So that's my point of view. So, but I really appreciate the vision that you have, and let's make it done. Let's make it done, really.
Yes, and don't discount consciousness, Hugo. It is the biggest component to all of this, and it is the missing link. I would highly recommend meditation and quieting your mind, because you will find more answers there than you will ever find in any declassified document. But that is my perspective. Data, do you have something to throw in really quick, and we'll move on?
Yeah, for sure. Hugo, I share the sentiment in the sense that science can answer everything, and some of the things that we've posted even tonight in the community is the science of consciousness, right? There's documents, declassified documents about remote viewing. There's declassified documents about paranormal behavior of a human being that the government is studying. So these are things that I'd encourage you to, kind of put into the mix of when you're researching, because it was important enough for the U.S. government to research them and have results and have different classified projects that specifically, target these different, higher consciousness, you know, levels, if you will, and that is just I try to explain everything away with science. I don't believe in ghosts, I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in that stuff. I believe I can, science has an answer for the reason why people walk up walls and their heads contort and things like that. And you tell me that there's a ghost, and I'll tell you every reason why there's not. All right, so that's why I was saying, there's these the things that I was looking for specifically where's the technology. Something that I want to mention too is a lot of times we think that these extraterrestrials have a higher intelligence than us, and I believe, this is my personal belief, that's not true. That's not true at all, because we as humans have, and measuring the intelligence level is something that we can't even do. We believe just because there's a technology that has anti-gravity capabilities, and you can travel at warp speed, that we believe that's like you're super intelligent to be able to do that. But in fact, and we believe that telepathy is super intelligence as well, right? And we believe that the ability to jump into a craft even and not be affected by the radiation. We believe that that's intelligent too, but in fact that's intelligence to them, right? And we believe because we can't do this now. Some people believe we can't do this now, then they're better than us or they're more smarter than us, and that is not true. In the fact that they're still coming here, right? We have something that they need, or something that they want to tell us, or something that they want to share with us, or something that and this is again my opinion, you only come someplace when you either need something or you want to impose your ideas upon because someone's not doing what you're doing, right? And you want to kind of maybe even convert them to what you're doing. But with that said, I think this kind of just opens, maybe open your mind up to a little bit of the consciousness portion. That, again, I'll reiterate, the U.S. government has many studies with consciousness, and as it relates to this UFO phenomena, something to really research, and the results are for you to decide. I'm Data.
Thank you, Data. Divine Being. Really quick, we're at 1 o'clock. We've gone a little over, so I do want to make sure I'm going to be holding people to the 2-minute limits, just so that we can get to everybody who has been patiently waiting, because we've at 3.5 hours right now. So it's been a great, phenomenal room. Obviously love it, but I do want to be respectful to my moderators who are here and patiently waiting. Actually, Robbie, you just popped in. I know you've just got back from Africa today, but I did want to, because I never gave you a chance. Was there anything that you wanted to add to the Tesla, the movies, or UFO current events, or anything we've been talking about thus far? And good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Nate, and all the wonderful mods up here. I'm kind of in a poor connection area, so if you catch me maybe after a few more people speak, I'll be ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Robbie. Divine Being, you are up.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Can you guys hear me well?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I've been researching a lot for the past year. I made a book. I authored and illustrated it. It's not my own. It's just me writing down a bunch of stuff. It's called the Hearth compilation, because I studied heart and earth, and they're both spelled the same. So it's called Hearth, like heart and earth. So basically, yeah, Nikola Tesla began my research when I was younger. My dad bought me a Tesla book, and when I saw that picture of him holding a light bulb without it being plugged in, I was fascinated. I said, wow, that's free energy. And I studied more and more, and I realized he had his Wardenclyffe Tower, which was in Long Island, New York, or Shoreham, New York, Long Island. And he had a Tesla experimental station, which was in Colorado Springs. but the one in Wardenclyffe Tower was at the 40th degree parallel, and I noticed that it had an aquifer, and this was similar to the aquifer in the Pyramid of Egypt. So I realized, wow, Tesla, he just recreated the pyramid from Egypt and built it over there in New York. So what in fact happened was the light bulb was not needed to be connected. The tower itself emitted this energy. And I read somewhere, I forgot where I read it. It was an article online. Of course, we don't believe everything we read, but I'd love to share this with you because it makes perfectly logical sense to me. So the tower itself released magnetism. And the thing is, it said that magnetism is free and electricity is what costs. So if we had magnetism today, then we wouldn't be paying for PG&E, paid gas and electric. But anyways, here's my point. So I mentioned the 40 degree parallel, which is where Shoreham, New York was. And it's very interesting, you guys. I found it super amazing that all of the ancient pyramid building ancestors built their pyramids on the 30 degree parallel because it is a fact that all of the ancient rivers, the four old rivers, were at the 30 degree parallel. For instance, the Mississippi River, the delta of the Mississippi let off into the Gulf of Mexico at the 30 degree parallel. The Nile River, the Nile Delta let off into the Mediterranean Sea at the 30 degree parallel. The Indus River in India, the delta over there led off into the Arabian Sea at the 30 degree parallel. And the Yangtze River, one of the longest, well, Mississippi, Nile, and Yangtze, these are all long rivers. But the Yangtze River went sideways, but it was still on the 30 degree parallel, and the delta went off into the Pacific Ocean. So all of these on the different continents around the world are around the 30 degree parallel. And it's interesting. I said, so why the 30 degree parallel? Because the Egyptian pyramids are at the 29.9, the speed of light, basically. So I said, what's so important about the 30 degree? And Tesla's tower was at the 40 degree parallel, by the way. And I know I'm kind of talking fast, I apologize. But basically, guys, the 30 degree parallel, there's a lot of lightning storms. It's very electrical at this parallel. So at the equator, it was called the dead zone. So when people were sailing on their ships, uh, they used to have to throw the horses out of the ship when they were at the equator because it was the dead zone. There was no rain, or it was a little bit of rain. It was very quiet and still waters, but all the actions was at the 30 degree parallel. So you guys are right. I forgot who it was. He said that he thinks the Earth is alive, and I know the Earth is alive because Tesla knew, and so did the Egyptians. So they harnessed the Earth's energy, and my point is, the lightning at the 30 degree parallel is it's predominant at the 30 degree, and everyone knows that lightning never stops. It's forever on Earth, and every night there's a lightning storm somewhere. Well, last year there was one of the most lightning strikes ever. So I'm not gonna be too long, guys. By the way, so now Tesla knew that the lightning storms were charging the resonant cavity of the Earth. And he discovered, but I believe he rediscovered, because I'm pretty sure the Egyptians knew. But Tesla, he said that he discovered the ionosphere and that it was very thin, and it was so thin that electric currents can, that the air, it was conductive up there. And it was so thin that you can transmit energy beams from one side of the world to the other. On a flat Earth or a globe, doesn't matter. The ionosphere is up there in that certain layer. So now, basically, you don't build your pyramid at the equator, you build it at the 30 degree parallel where the lightning storms are. And I guess I would like to imagine that if lightning storms happened, they would have hit the tip of that pyramid, but I can't prove that because I'm not even sure if there's lightning storms around the pyramids today. I got to research that part. But it is a fact, the 30 degree parallel, boom, bunch of lightning. So the Schumann resonance is connected to your human resonance, because when you're disconnected from the human resonance, you experience like very depression, schizophrenia. There was a experiment in Nazi Germany where they secluded these men in a room lined with aluminum, which disconnected them from the electromagnetic field of the Earth. Because everyone knows if you put aluminum around your phone or your Wi-Fi router, you will disconnect. So it stops things from entering through the aluminum. So they were so disconnected, they were stuck in a room lined with aluminum foil, and they went crazy. The opposite, on the contrary, when you put your heels on the Earth, you can heal yourself. So when you put your root chakra to the roots.
Well, I don't know what happened there. Good stuff, though. Definitely agree with a lot of the stuff he's saying, and any of the rooms we've dove into about Egypt or the the true history of what these ancient civilizations knew and achieved and understood, especially as it pertains to Tesla. Tesla's fascination with pyramids as well, and understanding the force generated therein, and what these things actually were, which some believe either to be power plants or portals, or a combination of both. But Graham Hancock has some really amazing videos you can watch on YouTube where he does like these 10-minute breakdowns on the absolute insanity of what went into making the pyramids from a mathematical, geographical standpoint, and energetic standpoint as well, and what they were aligned to. Super fascinating, but not sure, phone must have died. Shvetab, you are up, my man. Appreciate your patience. Shvetab, are you there?
Shwetab, we can't hear you, dude.
Not hearing you, brother.
Can't hear you. Nate, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they both got struck by lightning.
They're on that 40th parallel. All right, Michael, you are next, my man. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. And I was looking forward to him landing with that one, the divine being for sure.
I know.
Yeah. First of all, I definitely want to give my condolences to Scotty. I've been in many rooms with him, so my condolences to you, Scotty, and your family, my friend. Much love to you, brother. Yeah, I mean, dang, where do I start? This is such a good topic. First of all, if you look at my PTR, that's a picture of me and Travis Walton from Fire in the Sky, and I met him at a UFO convention in LA called Aliacon, if you guys have ever heard of it. So yeah, that was a pretty awesome experience, and I asked him, I was like, hey, I've been seeing a lot of these things, so, and he just gave me a real serious look and said,
Guys, did
it's,
I disconnect this whole time? I'm so
you
sorry.
did. Go ahead and
Wow.
continue.
Okay, where was I left off at?
The earthing divine. Feet on the earth.
Yeah, feet on the earth to
Okay,
ground.
sorry. So when you put the soles of your feet to the soil of the earth and you put your heels on the earth, you can heal yourself. So somebody on here was saying that he believes the earth is alive. Well, yes, earth spells heart, and your earth has a pulse. Well, the heart, when your heart beats forever, well, the earth has a pulse that beats forever. So the poles of the earth, that's where the pulse is. Because from the pole, the North Pole, you drill a hole and there's the core. And by the way, your heart is corazon. So this is why my book was called Heart. So now, Tesla, did I talk about the ionosphere already? Okay, so I want to say this. The government destroyed Tesla's tower, and they knew how it worked. They have his patents, right? And they know that his tower produced free energy. You don't need to plug in the light bulb. So if I was president, first thing I would do is I would declassify Tesla's documents so that we all have Tesla towers and we're all able to build them in our backyards. By the way, the Tesla tower costed $100,000 for Tesla. I don't know how much it would cost today, but people are millionaires. With $1 million, you can build 10 Tesla towers. And he said one of them was able to shoot from New York or Colorado Springs to Paris. So, wow, we can build 10 of them. And today we have a bunch of 5G towers, which are not free energy, are they? So I'm just fascinated that we don't have any Tesla towers, but many 5G towers. And the Tesla tower, I'm gonna be short now. It's gonna end right here pretty soon, guys. Sorry for being long-winded and disconnecting earlier. So, um, so now somebody on here said that they believe Tesla was reaching into the aliens or some other intelligence. Well, I believe Tesla built his tower, because he studied the pyramids. So, I mean, sure, I'm not denying aliens or other intelligence out there, but it is true. People think the aliens built the pyramids, but I know Tesla built his tower, which replicated the pyramid. I don't think it's too hard for us to believe that we can build pyramids. Someone else said that humans are super intelligent, and we think the advanced beings in the world are the aliens and not the humans for some reason. We don't think we are the ones who can build, uh, you know, super advanced technologies. I mean, I want to end with this. The iPhone itself has a lens which is replicating your eye. The speaker is your mouth where you speak. The microphone is your ear where sound goes in. And there's a monitor screen where you can see, just like when you take images from your eyeballs, you convert it into a monitor in your mind. So yeah, guys, thank you for having me. I've been researching Tesla for a lot. I've been waiting for some people who want to hear what I've learned, and I want to hear what people have learned, so I can fill in what I don't know and also share what I do know with you guys, so that, like Nate said, or I think it was Data that said, um, the point is, you can't really just trust the government all the time. They don't have the whole puzzle piece. We have pieces ourselves, so when we come together, we can form that puzzle. And so, thank you guys. Thank you. I'm Divine Being.
Thank you, Divine. Glad we got you back. Shvetab, are you have a better connection now? Are you there? Or are you still having technical difficulties? All right. Michael, back to you, brother.
Sweet, thanks, Nate. Awesome stuff, Divine Being. Good stuff there, brother. Yeah, like I was saying, I met Travis Walton at the UFO convention in LA, and from a lot of my experiences, I had the pleasure and the opportunity to ask him, straight in the face, dead in the eye, like, these things I've been seeing, like, like it's just all too real to me. And he just gave me a serious look, a very serious look, and said, yes, like, this is real. And it's it was kind of like like really hit me right in the stomach, like, from his movie Fire in the Sky, and just being there with him to talk to him. One movie that comes up for me is The Abyss. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Abyss. That movie struck home for me when I was young. I think it came out in 1989, and it has to do with an alien race that was underneath the water, and their ability to manipulate the water itself. And when you think about yourself and the planet, we're basically 75-80% water, just as our planet is. So it's like, is water not the superb, or the consciousness itself? Is that not a possibility? And not only that, like, it's safe to say that these beings could be coming from outer space, but do they not already reside in our waters? Like, for me, I think it's a safe thing to say that they've been underwater for who knows how long. You just, and they pop out, and help us out with, like, the Tesla technology type stuff, the pyramids and all that stuff, teaching us things. But who's to say they haven't been underneath the water for the longest time? And it just kind of blows my mind that we have the hardest time getting down underneath the water, because it's just so, basically, it's like impossible. We do have our subs and stuff, but they can only go so deep. And and even them, they have these bogeys that they catch all the time that they won't talk about. And it seemed to be a much normal thing down there, with much more sightings underneath the water than we actually see in the skies. So, for me, I think they've been here the whole time, and they know much more about water and its consciousness, and the vitalness of it, how everybody needs water to survive. And yeah, I mean, I could go on forever on that, and it's just it's amazing. And I think if we were to dive deeper into our own waters, rather than trying to go out into space, which is, is just, oh my God, like, your mind is just so blown. But if we are the center of the universe, and 85, 70, 80% of our planet is water, then I think we should be looking more there. I'm Michael, and I'm done.
Well, Michael, you
Michael,
just teed up Nicola. Oh, Scotty, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, Michael, we mentioned the movie Europa earlier. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out for sure.
Yeah,
Will
definitely.
do, Scotty.
Yeah,
Definitely.
back to the water. Back to the water tie-in, very much so. And Nicola, I think Michael just teed you up with the water talk. So you are up. Good to see you.
Aloha. I'm just giggling my butt off, if I can say that, because Michael, I first didn't recognize you because you changed your PTR, but Michael and I have been connecting since we've been on Nate the last time with you here, Nate. Michael pinged me, and now we sit next to each other, and then he started talking like, that's my Michael. So I'm like, all right, again, a beautiful synchronicity happening, which I celebrate. I'm winking back at the universe right now. Wink, wink, wink. So, yes, thank you so much for everybody. And Scotty, I watched the video just before I entered the room, um, in our beautiful, in our beautiful thread we have. And I really have to say that your father feels like a galactic ambassador or agent. It's just something there. There's so much wisdom. So thank you for sharing. And he's definitely with us. Thank you, Scotty. And so about what all has been said before, my heart and my soul was singing all the time. My cells are tingling. So Michael, you just said we know less. You actually said my point. It's like I believe we know less about the water than about the universe. We said before, then DJ Tump was with us, that we know less about our oceans, or you said it, Nate, right? We know less about the ocean than about the universe. But I would even say we know less about the water in general, in us, on the planet, in the ocean, than the universe. And that's what you also said, Michael. Going within, as we are also made of over 80% of water. I love this little poem from Novalis, written 1700s, late 1700s. It says, "We dream of travels throughout the universe. Is not the universe within us?" And that was before technology was really there. And regarding that, we are connected with some sort of divine being. Oh, divine being, you're not here anymore. I really like the earthing you mentioned, that we can heal by just connecting with the magnetic field of the earth when we're being bare feet and on earth, and lots of stuff. So there's I keep it short. I have 1 minute left, so let's see what I can share here with you guys. I made some bullet points of amazing movies, if anybody resonates with that. It's a Soviet science fiction movie made in 1972. It's called Solaris. The book is also amazing. I highly
Yes.
recommend it.
Yes.
It's a bit dark if you look at it, but if you really get the message, it's all about consciousness, and this movie is amazing. Solaris, guys, 1972. I think there's also a newer version, but no. All watch the old stuff. Then, of course, a standard, The Abyss, which we just heard from Michael. Thank you, Michael. We are connected. So and it was 1989, Michael, The Abyss. And of course, Kubrick, 2001, A Space Odyssey. It's just amazing. Then there's a newer one from 2006. It's The Fountain with Hugh Jackman. And that shows you how
Yes.
time is so relative. So, guys, watch The Fountain. It's amazing. Inception, it's also about consciousness. I think it's 2010. It's also a great movie regarding how consciousness, how many layers we have, and how time and consciousness and all these beautiful things. And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxies. It's a must if you're a sci-fi geek. The books are amazing, but the movie is also pretty good, and I highly recommend it. And Scotty, regarding of studies of consciousness, I don't know, but John C. Lilly came up when you were speaking. So I don't know if you know anything about him, but he is a lot in the 60s. He worked a lot with the consciousness and dolphins and flotation tanks. So, guys, I'm just doing bullet points because there was so much shared and said that I am feeling. That's it. Thank you very much. Passing on the mic, and love you all.
Nicola, you're amazing. I love that you took notes and had bullet points. You are a true gem and a great asset to the room. So thank you so much for being so thorough and those recommendations. Yes, all of them. Seen all of them. Love all of them. The remake of Solaris wasn't that bad. It was actually it was okay, but the original, the Russian one, is absolutely incredible. Definitely long though. For those of you who have a short attention span, that it may be a task. But The Fountain also definitely an underrated movie, even though it did win a number of awards. I think was nominated for an Oscar, but still, it's one of those I think a lot of people haven't seen, and definitely highly recommend it. So thank you, Nicola. Good to see you, and happy for the synchronicity with you and Michael. Tara, you are up. Thank you for your patience.
Hello, hi. I was very excited to see the notification when you opened the room tonight. Thanks for bringing me up. I have I actually want to come up because I have a question about this week or I guess it was last week, they mentioned about Saturn. I wanted to know what your thoughts were about them saying, it was emitting so much. I don't want to say it wrong if it was methane or what kind of gases it was emitting, and they were feeling that there was, or they were saying like there was life, that they had not really, that wasn't ever really a thing that we talked about. Much like they said, move over Mars. I read up on that portion. I wanted to get your feedback, but as far as the movie goes, I wanted to say Gattaca just stands out in my mind as one of like my all-time favorite, besides The Abyss, which was so awesome that he brought up, Michael. But yeah, Gattaca, if you haven't seen it, it's a really, really cool movie from the late 90s. um, about a guy going to space, and he wasn't really capable on paper, but I'll leave it out, but it's definitely worth the watch. But if you could give me some information about the whole Saturn thing, I'd love to hear your feedback, Nate. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Tara? Am I saying that right, or is it Tara?
It's Tara, but
Tara.
it's fine.
I can definitely get it right. Yeah, I think I saw something on that in passing, and if my memory serves me correctly, and anyone feel free to correct me, but I think it was Europa that had some type of an eruption, which we have been interested in going there for a long time, and I think we have a mission plan to it. To go drill underneath the ice there, because there's an ocean underneath it, and I don't want to spoil anything, but that's all the more reason why you should watch the movie Europa if you haven't seen it. But I think that's just sparked just more interest in it. They've had their eye on this for a long time, and the acknowledged portion of our space exploration as it pertains to NASA. Europa has been a definite hotspot zone for the possibility of life, and microbial maybe, or perhaps something far greater. Like I said earlier, with that cave that was discovered a few months back, that was sealed for 5 million years without contact and just full of poisonous gas, and yet there's all these life forms in there, all these different species that had evolved in pitch black and no oxygen, just toxic gas, and yet here they were. And so it's obviously this stuff exists everywhere else. Like the universe is teeming with life. But yeah, I only saw something about it in passing. I didn't really look into it too much. I tend to have less of an opinion on the acknowledged things that NASA or anybody is talking about, just because I know how limited it is. But I do see these things, but I don't have much to add to it other than I'm pretty sure it was a plume from Europa, or some type of an eruption from underneath the ice that's launching stuff into space that they hope to be able to go and grab and study, so that they can detect if there is life forms, at least microbial, underneath that sheet of ice. But if I am misspeaking on that, please, anybody who may have read the story, please clarify.
I'll add something about Saturn. I think we could. Saturn is fascinating. I think it's the most interesting planet out there. When you look at, there's an excellent book called The Ringmakers of Saturn, and during the Voyager mission, there were pictures that were sent back that shows this object cruising around Saturn that was purportedly creating rings. And since then, there are other photographs taken by other craft that had made it out there. there was reports of the Russian craft that went out there and was essentially destroyed, and they don't know what happened to it. There's all kinds of things that could have happened to it, but um, the mystery surrounding the Russian satellite, there was a reason why they are suspecting that it was willfully destroyed. And then also, the Saturn is worshipped by what some people call the Illuminati, and that's a whole other topic. And then also, if you look at the top of Saturn, there is a hexagonal shape, which back when we sent the Voyager out, it took pictures, and there was this hexagonal shape on the north pole of the planet, and NASA said, "Oh, that's just an effect of the camera." Well, then I forget. I think it was the Cassini spacecraft, which then went back and took really, really good photos and even more detailed photos of that hexagonal shape. And it has, science has done their best to try and explain it away as a natural phenomena, but I do not think it's a natural phenomenon. There are religions and cults that worship Saturn, including the I believe it's the Hasidic Jews, or wait, not the Hasidic Jews. It's the mystic version of the Jews. If someone can help me out with that, that would be great. But Saturn, super fascinating. There's all kinds of crazy shit. There are actually photos of some sort of craft that has been airbrushed out by NASA from the Cassini mission that was inspecting its rings. So Tara, I'm glad you brought up Saturn because it's a fascinating planet. We could probably do a study or a room on it in itself and bring in all the kind of interesting anomalies that Saturn shows us. So thanks.
The mysticism you're talking about is Lurianic Kabbalah, but something else
Yes.
about the ring. So one of the first discoveries of the plumes was from a different moon. What was the name of it?
It's
Enceladus.
Enceladus. Yeah, I just looked it up.
But they're also finding there may be plumes on Europa as well. But what's interesting is that they've also discovered those same geometric shapes on Jupiter now. There is a pentagon on the top and a septagon. I think a seven-sided figure, and it has vortices at each of the vertexes, and that's basically what's almost certainly causing the same thing on Saturn, and that's a long discussion that I can bring into the whole ether topic as well. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Wow, thank you guys. I mean, I don't know much about this stuff at all, and I became way more interested upon Nate talking about different things. I mean, like MK Ultra, counter impul. I've read about those things. They fascinate me. I've gone down those rabbit holes, unfortunately. But this space, and the Saturn information, yeah. Thank you so much for all that you guys share on here. I found that this space was probably the most beneficial, and I left and I came back for this. So I really, really appreciate the information, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara. Appreciate the kind words, and we're happy to have any type of positive impact. I guess after all, that is why we're all here and what the point of all of this is. So I really do appreciate that feedback and hearing that. And yeah, the hexagonal formations, that's something that I think we'll go into in another room, because I've also seen similar things on our planet at the poles, various satellite imaging that's been shown. And these are not, they seem to be non-ordinary or non-naturally occurring. Whenever you see angles, right angles or perfect angles and things like that, nature usually doesn't make those type of things. And so it's very interesting that this seems to be a pattern. And I'm sure there are, there could possibly be a natural scientific explanation, or, as Shiva was talking about, having an idea as it pertains to the ether, but definitely worthy of exploration, because there's a number of these very interesting phenomena and things that are all around us that we just don't pay attention to, or in a lot of cases that just aren't shown to us or get scrubbed, as Scotty was saying, from various NASA imaging, but are still nonetheless occurring. And it's very fascinating. And just the idea of gaseous planets too is something I've had thoughts on as well, and what lies underneath these massive storms, and fun things. But that's all, fun theory and speculation and for another night. But thank you, Tara. We're happy to have you here. And Kelly, you are up. Thank you for your patience. Kelly, are you there? Kelly going once, Kelly going twice. Mike, you are up. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I've been very interested in these topics for many years. I'm an occult researcher and teacher, so I'm learning and teaching. But when it comes to Saturn, really quick, it's very interesting. I have a book here from David Icke. It's called The Phantom Self, and it talks about Saturn. It says that Saturn was the most prominent Earth sun before it was infected by the Archon virus and relocated by the cataclysms to become the outmost planet visible to the naked eye. Saturn is a copy of energetic information patterns of the still existing original in higher frequencies. We are dealing with computer codes, remember, not solid objects. Saturn became a vehicle for the demiurge virus and a prime source of imposing the fake reality. Basically saying that like Saturn is broadcasting a frequency to us that's creating like a false reality here, what they call the matrix. So I think this is very interesting. And I think a lot of movies, they have so many movies about aliens and alien takeovers. Like, we've seen Independence Day and the movie Aliens. But there's a recent movie that came out called Captive State. And I think you guys should write that down and check it out when you get a chance. It's very interesting. So I love talking about these topics, and I definitely believe that there is good extraterrestrials and bad extraterrestrials. And I believe that there is a negative consciousness that is here on the planet, and that is like a virus that is leeching off the planet. And like I've heard before that the planet is like alive. And I'm sure many of you believe that the planet is like a living consciousness. So whatever these negative beings are, they're latching off of the planet. And what I believe is that they are harvesting our soul energy because they can't create it themselves. So I think this is why we are being used, and we are definitely in a matrix. But I think that there's so much more to us. And it's unlocking the occult knowledge hidden within ourselves. So it's almost like all of us know this. And I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we are all coming back here. So all of us must know each other on some level. So we're all in this room together, connecting, knowing about this. We've all probably done this work before. So I'm very interested in all these topics, and I'm definitely convinced in extraterrestrials and UFOs. And I appreciate the I appreciate the time to talk. I don't want to take too much of your time because I know there's other people that want to speak. But I'm glad I got the opportunity to speak to you guys. And I think there's something going on right now that I really wanted to bring about. It's about hybridization. And this is from a book called Alien World Order by Len Kasten. It says, when the cabal has permitted to take place in the covert hybridization of the human race, much like what happened to Atlantis. The end game is different. Instead of using hybrids to dilute the human bloodline to make humans more susceptible to fourth dimensional influence, the hybrid creatures are essentially intended to house the souls of aliens because these bodies are not acceptable to human souls due to critical DNA differences. So the hybrids are really no longer humans at the soul level. Since this process has now been progressing for more than 50 years, there are now many millions of alien hybrids walking the streets of our large cities, interacting with humans at every level and producing second and third generation hybrid aliens. The hybrids all have enhanced paranormal capabilities, so they have the advantage of elbowing aside the genuine humans in any competitive situation, as with employment in sensitive governmental jobs, thus gradually taking over those organizations. This situation is in the storyline in the film Blade Runner, where it is very special to take a look at this information. These hybrids, of course, are marching orders from the Greys, reptilians, and the Bavarian Illuminati. The end game is the gradual replacement of millions, perhaps billions of humans, and the enslavement of the rest, as intended in World War II. Very interesting information, and I want to thank you guys, Nate and Nate with Talks. Thank you guys. Thank you and the team, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad. It's so funny you brought up Captive State because I intended to watch that during the COVID lockdown. And then by the time it released, I forgot all about it because I think it was delayed. The release of it was delayed. But I just queued it up because I actually do remember seeing the trailer for that and being very intrigued. So I have added that to the queue of things to watch. So thank you, and appreciate the insight, man, and the research. Keep on the path, and keep sharing the information. That is what we're ultimately all here to do. Really quick, Robbie, are you in a place with a connection to be able to say a few words, or are you good?
I'm afraid if I keep talking that you may not see me. Maybe hold off on that just one more time. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm not.
You're good, Robbie. We're just happy to have you here and have you back. So do not worry at all. ST Quest, you are up.
Very
Appreciate
good.
your patience.
Great. Thank you for having me, Nate. Data Silver. So it's actually pretty crazy. Let me not use that word in here, I guess. It's very fitting, I guess, kind of where the conversation is turned. So actually, the notification that brought me into the room was DJ Toomp, right? I'm a hip hop artist myself, but I've been doing, we'll call it occult research since I was a teenager. And as we're talking about Saturn, that's actually one of the central works of my project, right? The name of my project is El Nino, with the concept being that, you know, what's going on Earth is like a storm, is this condition that we're under, right? And actually, you know, shameless self promotion, on my Instagram page, there is a cover art for a song that I put out, and the cover art is just really, it's kind of a mirrored image of a painting by Francisco Goya called Saturn Devouring His Son. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's basically a painting of what would be the Greek depiction of Saturn literally devouring a baby, right? And of course, if we do enough occult research, that'll be relevant. Now, where some of this other stuff comes into play with Saturn, this is not a movie, but it is a piece of media that we can, you know, get into. Actually, it's an old episode from the cartoon Aquaman, right? There's an episode of Aquaman called The Satanic Saturnians, and it's about these alien beings that come down in these pyramid-shaped UFOs, and they talk about flooding the earth so that no one can resist their invasion. Now, they look pretty interesting. They look like aquatic beings. And they talk about lowering heat rings so they can melt ice caps in Antarctica. Now, this is from, I want to say, the 70s, maybe the 60s, but it's a early cartoon, and it's incredible that this kind of media exists, right? That it's kind of out in the open, and it's kind of in plain sight in that type of a way. But what I originally came in the room to talk about, and what I originally heard of when I came in, was kind of going into caves and, you know, what may be into these, you know, inner earth pathways, we'll say. So with the things that are going on in the world right now, right, what we'll call global warming and the rising sea levels and things like this, I do think we'll live in a very different world in about 10 years' time. And so a question that I ask myself is, what can I do to prepare for cataclysmic type events? And I've always thought that, you know, going into the earth may be a kind of a safe haven. Now, me personally, I'm Mexican American. I'm first generation Mexican American. So my parents are from Mexico. And the part of Mexico they're from is called Zacatecas, right? And not far from where my father grew up, there is an ancient site. It's called La Quemada, and there's a like a like an old pyramid site there, some columns. And the lore there is that as early Aztec tribes, what we call the Aztecs nowadays was actually a bunch of native tribes that kind of conglomerated and came to. Anyway, long story short, it was rumored to be this site called Chico Mostok, right? And Chico Mostok was to be kind of the central spiritual space of the Aztec people, what eventually became Aztlan, right? So the story with that is they were following the snake with the I'm sorry, they were following the eagle with the snake in its beak, and wherever this eagle landed was where the spiritual center was be. Well, the story goes that La Quemada, this site, was one of those places. Now, eventually, they didn't settle there; they kept going, right? But there is these ruins there, and if you look up Chico Mostok, one of the images that'll come up is it's pretty much a hollow mountain. It's a hollow mountain with about 7 caverns on the inside. The depiction is of a native person kind of sitting inside of the mountain, and there's these chambers in there. And that state, Zacatecas, is known for its silver mines and all kinds of things like this. Now, I used to visit there a lot as a kid, at least every 4 years. I haven't been in some time. This place used to terrify me because I used to see things that to this day I can't explain, right? And as we talk about the Earth being alive and stuff, that's my explanation of it. That's my understanding of it that I have now, is that these places have different kind of earth energies that I think the things that I would see were kind of drawing from and upon. Um, but I do fully intend to go back there and fully explore as best I can. Now I do want to be well equipped when I go. Like unlike Toomp, I don't think I would be very receptive to seeing different beings. That's always been one of my biggest fears. And actually, there's a very famous abduction story from the area, so not very not very keen on that. But yeah, just wanted to share that. Chico Mostok, it's interesting. Lac-e-Mala, ancient sacred site. And yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, ST. How do you spell Mustok?
I believe it's CHIMOSTOC. Sometimes it's with a Z instead of a S.
CHIMOS what?
TOC.
Okay, so one word. Okay, just curious. Yes, there it is. Perfect, man. Appreciate you, and definitely go on that mission. I'm a firm believer in and doer of world travel, especially to these ancient sites, to see them and experience them and feel them for yourself. And the first time I did that in Egypt, in places like Jordan and Petra and Chichen Itza and all these ancient megalithic sites, there's a humbling that takes place being there, and an energy that is there that is, I believe, measurable and palpable. And then furthermore, going into South America, Central America, and Mexico, and sitting with shamans there in any type of ceremony, whether with ayahuasca or San Pedro, is an incredibly profound and grounding experience within those ancient civilizations and beings and things that made up that culture itself, and it defies really words, and it's hard to even articulate it properly what I'm trying to say, but experiencing it firsthand is always the way to do it. That is the way to fully understand these things that we either read about in books or watch in documentaries or whatever the case may be. It becomes very real when you are there to actually see it and touch it and feel it. So I encourage that journey and hope that you take it. Appreciate you being here, man. Rico, you are up. Welcome to the stage, and thank you for your patience. If you are there. Rico, going once. Going twice. Shvetab, I'm going to give you one more chance too, buddy, if your mic is ready, or Kelly, either of you, both of you, Going once and twice across the board. Perfect. Well, then, Robbie, if you want, you can bring us home. Otherwise, I'll bring us home. It is up to you. No pressure either way.
Take it home, Nate. Go for it.
All right. Well, that was just a little bit above the hour, so we're top of the hour, rather. So that was hour 4 that we just passed, and with that, I guess I will just do the final reset. This is Nate Night Talks, Tesla, movies, UFO current events, and more. And there was a lot more, which we discussed and talked about tonight in great detail. An awesome night, so thank you so much, everybody who came up and spoke and shared your stories, experiences, and questions with all of us, as well as my incredible moderators who are always here holding it down, sharing their research and experience within these subjects. It's incredibly valuable and beneficial to us all. And thank you, everybody who is in the audience hanging out with us and has been here. You guys are all absolutely incredible, and hopefully next time we will be able to hear from you as well. As always, everybody is welcome on stage. We want to hear all opinions, all perspectives, all research. Just make sure that you have a profile picture, a bio, and a social media linked so that we know you are not going to troll. Final notes, as always, please do, if you vibe with the club, please follow the club and click the bell so you get notified when I do these rooms, usually twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 9:30 p.m. The bell is the best way because pinging is nearly impossible because there's no organization. And follow the mods and anybody who is speaking tonight, because there's tons of incredible people with amazing stories and perspectives who also do their own rooms, as do my fellow mods. And so there are plenty of ways to connect with the people who are here tonight. Of a similar mindset and a similar, calling on this app to have these conversations and share this information and experience. So make sure you build that tribe, and same thing with everybody in the audience. Just follow people next to you. If you're here for any length of time, you're here for the same reason, or at the very least a similar curiosity. So build that community is incredibly valuable. Also, if you are able to support and interested, definitely go to natenighttalks.com and join the community. And also on there, we do have 5 declassified documents spanning a number of the topics that are talked about in these clubs, just to kind of show you a little bit of how seriously the government takes these subjects, the subjects of consciousness and UFOs and mind control and remote viewing, telepathy, advanced propulsion systems, et cetera, et cetera. This is not something new. Despite what their narrative may have you believe, they have been very involved, interested, and doing tremendous amounts of research within this subject matter for a very, very long period of time. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you will understand the things that are actually taking place. So definitely do that, and your support is greatly appreciated if you join the community. We're thousands of declassified documents that are going to be added. We're adding more and more every week, just to keep that database going, as well as our research and just the community in general, a social place to share your own UFO sightings, psychedelic experiences, consciousness experiences, abductions, whatever it may be. A place that you actually, can know the person who's sharing the story and communicate with them versus some random Reddit thread or Facebook thread that gets trolled a lot and usually don't know the original author of the story. So just trying to create a place that we can all go and do this research and also have a community of truly like-minded truth seekers who just want to figure it out on their own journey. And so if you're able to support, love the support. And that is it. Otherwise, if any of the mods have any final thoughts, otherwise we'll close her down and we'll pick it up on Thursday. Silver, Scotty, Robbie, anything in closing? Or are we good? Take that as a no. Perfect. Well, with that being said, once again, thank you, everyone, and so much love to you all. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday at 9:30. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the week. Check out Robbie's room Wednesday night as well. I'm assuming she's probably going to be doing it in her high-frequency room. I'll mod in there with her as well, but it is her room, and it's an amazing space. And same with Scotty and Silver. They all do incredible rooms, as do a number of the people up here. So that was the whole follow point. So follow, click the bell, and keep the conversation going. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you as always for being here and supporting. Really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you Thursday at 9:30, if not before, in another room. Have a good night.